Good evening, my fellow Americans. This is your president speaking, and today is Recap Thursday because, again, so much ridiculous shit has been happening in our country and across the globe that one day of a weekly recap is just not enough. And honestly, folks, I am finding it more and more difficult every single day to maintain my calm and to address you all in a way that I feel is becoming of a leader. I want to be your representative. I want to be your president. I want to lead this country. I want your input. I want your feedback. And I want you to feel that when I speak and present myself to others of this country, speaking to the nation or to our international partners, that you don't think I'm just going to lose my ever-loving sanity and go off the rails. But let me tell you something. What just transpired in the House of Representatives should make anyone with a conscience and the intelligence to understand what happened go off the rails. And quite frankly, the fact that we are not immediately boycotting the 4th of July, not immediately just storming every single Capitol building, congressional office, senator office, mayor's office, governor's office, just the whole kit and caboodle is infuriating to me personally. What the actual fuck are we doing as Americans? That's the only thing that is rattling back and forth. And every video that I watch, every reel that I watch, every news article that I read, every time I try to think about how do I want to craft this message, all I can think of is why are we not burning these fucking assholes to the ground? Spreading their ashes across our various lands and then rebuilding this nation in our image. I truly do not understand why the Second Revolutionary War has not kicked off. Never mind Civil War. Forget the Civil War. We are the same material conditions that existed in 1776, or that led up to 1776, to be fair, are currently in place now. A government that does not represent the people. Taxation, again, without that representation, using the military as a police force, unilateral disregard for people's due process and habeas corpus, expanding the influence of that federal executive power without any consent to the governed whatsoever, denying access to healthcare, denying access to education, denying access to voting, expanding the power of the executive, which of course that was a king, but you get the idea, disregarding the courts, disregarding the legislative, the whole kit and caboodle. The only difference between the United States of America and the 13 colonies in 1776 is that we are currently called the United States of America. But shut the fuck up. If you're even attempting to argue that we are not facing actual tyranny and actual oppression from our own government at the behest of and at the direction by the current administration, then you're A, delusional, and B, you're just flat out wrong. And history has literally spelled it out for us time and time and time again, what it looks like and even what the steps are to take, which we actually discussed yesterday. And I don't feel like rehashing that part because we really do need to get into the bill and we have content to cover today. It's just, I'm finding it extremely difficult to convey the image that I actually want to convey, which is President Samuel Ronan with Ana Diosa as my chief of staff. She's going to be fierce and it's going to be hilarious when her deputy, Leia, just absolutely browbeats these decades-long veterans of the Senate and the House and whatever agencies are still in place by the time we take office. It's going to be hilarious. It's really going to be great, wholesome fun. The problem is with the passage of this bill, we have several extremely alarming things. Now, I may have been incorrect, and so if I have posts, and obviously we just started this stream, so it's not like I have to go back and correct myself on the stream, but they did get rid of the injunction clause where that lower courts could not, in fact, do the injunctions. It seems that as though they still can, but when you cut Medicaid, when you expand ICE, when you ignore the injunctions regardless, when you ignore the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court doesn't use the U.S. Marshals to arrest you and your entire administration on top of that, then it doesn't really matter what the paperwork says. If the courts have fundamentally neutered themselves, regardless, by their inaction, right? The precedent of not doing the thing, of not enforcing their rulings, then they have effectively neutered themselves regardless, and it doesn't matter if it's on paper. They're not going to just wake up one day and change their mind. And if they do, it's clearly going to be too late, because ICE has just been expanded to exceed the total funding of the FBI, U.S. Marshals, the Federal Corrections Bureau, and the ATF combined, to increase their manning and staffing to exceed the United States Air Force. Like, in increasing their encampments and so on and so forth, you have members of this administration talking about 65 million new meals for the alligators at our new concentration camp in Florida. We went over this. There are, in fact, approximately 62-ish million Latino people in the United States of America. That 65 million wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was saying, we're going to kill the brown people. We're going to round them up, and we're going to separate them into one of several areas. Slave labor, murder, and incubation chambers. Except the whole reason why all this shit started is because white people's birth rates have been in such stark decline that we would become a minority in the next 20 years. Shout out to Chief of Staff Anna. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of chat while also being on my soapbox. I'm floored. I'm at a loss. I am at an actual loss for words as to what do we do moving forward and how do I present it moving forward, right? And luckily, I have wonderful staff members helping me answer those questions. And so what you're going to see, thank God, is now I'll have the time and the opportunity to start making content that is both more revolutionary with call to actions, where I'm in public doing the selfie thing, like the cell phone stuff. And I'll actually break down what can we do, right? Because there's plenty that we can do, right? But we can't get into it. But my point is there is plenty of shit that we can do, but it needs to be addressed and it needs to be nuanced enough, but in context. And then we need to go back to the vest and the nice dress shirt. We need to start doing policy videos. And we need to start doing contrasting policy videos. As in, I am the next president of the United States, but that might not be the case in 2029, because realistically, the way everything is happening right now, with the expansion of the executive that has taken place, we might not have an election. And that could take any number of forms, between the most extreme version of an executive order saying we're just not going to have one, to still ridiculously extreme, but, it's a matter of national security. We have to send ICE agents to every single polling location in America and then terrorize every voter to make sure that they're actually Americans. But also arrest them for thought crimes against our fearless leader, because we're also doing that, because that's now literally a thing. Like loyalty tests to the administration, lacking of dissenting opinions to the administration's activities. These are all things that can now be used against you. To also, by the way, determine whether or not you're a citizen of the United States, which again, if you can have that unilaterally taken away and be targeted directly, explicitly directly by the president, that one would obviously remove your right to vote, which then means you can't vote, which means the only people that can vote then, who would retain their citizenship, would be Trump loyalists, which again effectively eliminates any hope of an election. So as much as this is going to be something that we make a reality one way or the other, I fucking guarantee it. It's a question of whether it shall be through cheeky means of dissent and being ungovernable, revolution, resistance, protesting, that kind of pressure. Will it be somehow an election where I'm being elevated in the same way he was being elevated, and then it blows up in their face despite all their efforts to manipulate and rig the elections? Or will we have to do something even cheekier, where I declare that my administration, is the only legitimate administration with enough support of the people, right? We would do some sort of like online polling or something along that lines, and petition the United Nations to recognize that the Trump administration is a rogue administration and that they do not represent the United States of America and that they do not have the authority to represent the United States of America, and that the people have instead entrusted that right and authority with me and my administration. Right? So there are many cheeky ways to go about doing it. Those are the three that come to mind: revolution, the cheeky description I just gave, and then winning the election. But we are facing an increasingly uphill struggle, and there are only a few safety mechanisms in place, and honestly, they're not even that good. I mean, okay, we have free speech, except we really don't anymore. But let's be very clear about that. Texas is passing legislation to where you can be arrested and fined for talking about abortion. So that's the state mandating speech, which is literally violating the First Amendment. It's both intent and its actual written language. Now, you also can't travel outside of the United States and come back without going through a loyalty test. When you come back, you have to show your social media to Immigrations and Customs. And if you have anything bad to say about our Lord and Savior Donald Trump, they can deny you. They can, at this point, also take away your citizenship, thus rendering you stateless and deny you entry back into the country, or arrest you and traffic you to some other fucking country. Now, that sounds like hyperbole, right? It's like, okay, buddy, chill. You said you were trying to be president and try and represent yourself in a calm, reasonable, rational manner, and you sound like a fucking psycho. Okay, well, we're about to find out. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. You can call me as crazy as you fucking want. I mean, you go right ahead. Birthright citizenship has been literally slashed. That is no longer a guarantee. It's going to be challenged. Sure, it's going to be challenged. Fine. The courts we're going to duke it out in the courts. Has that stopped this administration in the slightest so far? No. And you know what they're going to try and do again? Block the injunction thing through an executive order or some other nonsense. The thing is, they're going to shoot for the moon and hit the stars. And you know that still means that they left the stratosphere, right? Like, you do realize that their act, the mere fact that they are attempting this shit and largely getting away with it, is the problem. The fact that the mechanism of invoking the 25th Amendment for impeachment, right? Like, the fact that that is not an automatic trigger pull, lever pull, cronk, wrong lever, right? Like, that level of interference is indicative of one of the greatest flaws our Constitution has that we didn't realize it had until now. Because no one, not during the Nixon administration, not even during the Reagan administration, not even during FDR's administration, which is why we have term limits, did we ever fathom or conceive that the entire federal government, legislation, executive branch, and judicial branch would conspire to undermine our institutions and the Constitution of the United States. Thank you for the follow. Looks like we hit our follower goal too. So outstanding, right before the 4th of July. We are facing unprecedented constitutional crisis, which should have triggered a mandatory impeachment and removal from office. By simply, I mean, what was his first, like, the first flurries of executive orders that just unilaterally ignored the legislative branch's power by creating Doge, for instance, and allowing this man into the Social Security offices and the Treasury Department with hackers. That should have been it right there. Hey, I'm going to bypass Congress, which has the sole authority of creating federal agencies. I'm going to bypass Congress by not even allowing them to approve this man in the first place. I'm going to give him unilateral oversight over every single agency also on top of that, and give him unprecedented access to things without having a clearance to do so. Oh, and he's a foreign national. Not that that matters because, you know, the whole definition of treason in the Constitution is aiding and abetting or taking action on behalf of a foreign state against the United States of America. And I could not think of anything more against the United States of America than literally robbing the Treasury with hackers. Brought Israel and the U.S. to Palestine to the end, and now they wonder why they became radical. They lost their homes, rights, and lives. Yeah, I think you got carried away with the typing, but it seems like U.S. and Israel were trying to end Palestine and wondered why the Palestinians resisted. And absolutely. Ruben, we have foregone playing video games on Thursdays because apparently too much shit happens in this country and across the globe, but specifically this country, to where we can't actually play the game without having to address some batshit insane revelation or policy change or action or activity or whatever that this administration has undergone. And I know I'm ranting. I am literally ranting as calmly as humanly possible right now. I see. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, even if English is not your first language. But I cannot type and speak at the same speed. I don't think I can even type what I'm saying as I'm saying it without losing my choo-choo train of thought. So I apologize for that. Maybe if we do closed captions or something. One day we'll get there, because I don't even know what this software is barely able to do multi-streaming. So we're going to have to improve our process over time anyway. That said, we are in a state of crisis. Like there is, and it is only going to increase from here. Again, $900 billion cut from Medicaid. I'm just a guy on Lind. Okay, I don't know what Lind is, but welcome to the stream. Ah, I see. You know what? Before you ban him, I'm just a guy on Lind. The big beautiful bill has passed. What part of the bill do you think isn't going to impact you specifically? Oh, I'm waiting for you to defend it, because the way you phrased that very much so came off as you supported that thing. We're very quick to ban trolls on our stream. I'm not trying to be an ass. If I misinterpreted what you wrote, if you're even still watching, because we just dropped a couple viewers. Okay. All I'm saying is we're very quick to ban people, especially people who troll. For instance, whenever we talk about Palestine, we get people in here saying that they deserve to die and that Israel hasn't done anything wrong. Get where I'm going with this? So, yeah, let's get your opinion on it. Because unequivocally, I believe, and most Americans who understand what just happened believe, that this bill is going to be detrimental to our country, and it's actually going to impact my family directly, explicitly going to impact my family, because my sister's a nurse. right off the rip. Thank God my dad retired, but with corrections being what it is, that would be dramatically impacted. Incipient. Why are we getting so many follows all of a sudden? Like, I know that's not a complaint a streamer should be making, but like, why are we getting all this attention? Normally, we don't get any attention until 8 o'clock. I'm not used to that. I don't support BBB, but you know what? I'm going to just do you a favor and unfollow and not chat in here. You're giving off strange vibes, jumping at the gun and threatening to ban people. Bye. So, again, representing the country is not about making the people that I represent necessarily like me. It's about understanding that your opinion can very well be wrong, and that you need to understand why your opinion is wrong. And that a difference of opinion doesn't mean you're justified in that opinion or that you're factually correct. And yes, bragging about it or being trolling or trying to stir up controversy for likes and clicks is a fucking problem that has brought us to the brink of collapse that we find ourselves with, okay? Trumpism and alt-rightism and blah, 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 blah-ism all fundamentally is detrimental to our functioning society, because if it's cool and trendy to be like, haha, I think we should kick transgender people off of healthcare, they should get the healthcare that they were born with, haha, haha, turns into transgender bans. Haha, haha, black people shouldn't be able to get the same work that we do. DEI is stupid. Turns into black people being persecuted and being denied employment in the first place. Women should just shut up and stay in the kitchen. Make me a sandwich, bitch. Show me your tits. Turns into abortion bans. Turns into literally charging you with murder for having a miscarriage, for having an ectopic pregnancy, and then being a lawmaker who fucking voted for it, suffering from an ectopic pregnancy, having an emergency room doctor deny you the treatment that you need, an abortion, and then calling the fucking governor like the psychotic, self-aggrandized Karen that you fucking are, so that you can get the life-saving procedure because you're also an elected official. So no, I will take trolling very fucking seriously, and I will shut that shit down, because it is a clear and present danger to our fucking democracy, as we are seeing, and I will not fucking stand for it. Free speech works against the government. You can say whatever the flying fuck you want against the government. Trump should die. Obama could be hanged, right? Those were the number one talking points for the past 12 years. You have the right to say that. Once it becomes a credible threat, well, then the FBI comes knocking on your door. But the government telling you what you can say is what is not allowed with the free speech. But being able to lie and misrepresent information is not protected speech. Hate speech is literally not protected speech. You could go to jail for that. The fact that people didn't go to jail for threatening to lynch Obama is a testament to Obama, and that's like the only nice thing I'm going to say about the man, is a testament to his restraint as president, not wanting to even attempt to gray the lines of free speech. It's like, okay, fine, you want to lynch me. I don't think you're an actual threat because you're a hillbilly in Alabama who's drinking the conservative Kool-Aid, whatever. Now, the second you start buying rope and making your way to the White House, okay, that might be a credible threat. But now it's because of your actions, not your words, right? So I am not platforming conservatives. I will shut that shit down so fucking fast. I am not platforming liberals. I will shut that shit down so fucking fast. I'm not giving you a voice because you don't deserve a voice. Your voice is fucking dangerous. And yes, as president, I will stand by that. And even though I just said that the president dictating what free speech is what is actually violating the First Amendment. But we have to come together as a country and recognize that there was a reason why Nazism was made illegal in Germany. And maybe, just maybe, we should do the same thing. Actually enforce the 14th Amendment through the First Amendment by stipulating that if you're going to violate the 14th Amendment through your First Amendment, it still counts as a 14th Amendment violation and a crime thereof. Right? Now, all of a sudden, I'm not limiting what you're saying, but if you call a black man the N-word, you're going to prison for violating the 14th Amendment. and then we'll use, the either the recording or your post or whatever else as the evidence through your trial, because you deserve due process and your writ of habeas corpus and all this fun stuff. You will go to your trial, and then when you are found guilty for violating the 14th by using your first, you can get fucked in prison, literally and or figuratively. All right. Shalom Goyim. Yeah, I'm not even sure what that was all about. I don't support the BBB. Oh, wait, that was that. Far rightism. I'm far right anarchist, political nihilist. Ask me anything. Yeah, we did not want to platform that. Hello, Edelhose. Sorry for the delay in responding here. It seems to me that the Jews of Israel believe so much in their exclusivity and rightness in relation to the Arabs of Palestine that they themselves have essentially become anti-Semite xenophobes towards their related Semitic people. I mean, that is one. Now, it's not the Jews of Israel, although there are Jewish people in Israel who are, in fact, this, but it is Israelis, i.e. the Zionists. I just want to make sure. I get that you have a language barrier, so I'm not going to jump down your throat for that. But what I am going to say is we don't conflate Judaism with Zionism, Judaism with Israel, right? We don't conflate that here because that is anti-Semitic. Because the actual issue, it would be like conflating Germans with Nazism in modern day America, or modern day Germany, I'm sorry. Although the AfD is modern day Nazis, but again, that's not all of Germans. That's the AfD / the modern day Nazis. Just freedom of speech is part of the Constitution. I can't leave yet without reminding you of our First Amendment rights. You need to learn how the government works before you speak on it, because you're giving off childish vibes right now. No, I kind of explained my point there. Again, it's not Jewish fascism, it's Zionism. Freedom of speech is about the government, not private people, and the freedom of speech isn't the guarantee of a platform, which is my main. That was actually exactly what I said, is I don't believe you deserve the right to a platform to be heard, and that you should be punished for inciting violence and violating people's rights. So, either which way. It's about the principle, not just the law, and he's advocating for abusing the First Amendment. Still not, but okay. Let's not say Jews. It's Israeli Zionists. Many Jews are not Zios. Exactly. I tried to Google what Lind is, and I still don't understand. I don't either. Unless it's the chocolate, which is delicious. That's why I say Jews are Zionists, agreeing with you. I just don't know English well. My native language is Russian. Ruskvia. Do svidanya, comrade. Fucked Google translating. We can allow that. So what you need to do is something along these lines. Jews crap, wrong button. Something like that. All right. Also, again, thank you for the views. I'm really not used to having this much viewership before 8 o'clock. So again, thank you. Welcome to the stream. Sorry that I went on you caught me at like my soapbox moment of pure frustration. We're going to get into actual videos and content here. But I'll just, I guess, fill everybody in real quick. 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, Tuesdays through Thursdays. We cover domestic affairs on Tuesdays, foreign affairs on Wednesdays, and we do recaps on all of that shit on whatever has happened between the past 24 to 48 hours today. But today is a special day because we passed the bill that is dismantling democracy before our very eyes and expanding the powers of the executive by creating a secret police force whose sole control belongs to the executive, which is only going to violate our rights, freedoms, and privileges, especially the first, which Lind here seems to be so focused on, in ways that even this discourse could not even hope to catch, because it's not just talking about that the First Amendment doesn't offer platform to everything, but rather what the government dictating what we can actually say, think, feel, or do, right? Again, racism is not protected free speech, and it should never have been. Being a Nazi or a member of the KKK should never have been protected. And the exact second after the Civil War, when the Confederacy lost, the only flag that should be allowed to be flown in conjunction with the Confederacy should have been the white flag. Because the battle flag is a hate symbol. It is a symbol of treachery and treason against the United States of America by literally trying to split and violate the Constitution to maintain access to slavery. So the fact that the South, the Confederacy, was literally traitors, and we allow that to be embellished as something akin to heritage is batshit insane. And we need to address that as well. So racism, transphobia, misogyny, xenophobia, Islamophobia, all the other phobias, and then, of course, white supremacy and, of course, Confederacy are all hate speech and detrimental to our peaceful coexistence as a multicultural and diverse society. And even though I Googled how to say this in Latin, I can never remember it. Ex multis unum fimus. Out of many we become one. Our actual motto is E pluribus unum, out of many one, but I feel like that doesn't set the stage quite well. Ex multis unum fimus, out of many we become one, hits home that it is with our diversity that we become the United States of America. So anywho, that's what I think Israel is: a militaristic and inadequate state. They shoot their neighbors, they take away territories and businesses under the noise, and then oppress the local Arab population. Moreover, the image of Palestinian Jews suffers from Zionist Jews. Exactly. We can go ahead and block Lind now. He's clearly just trolling at this point. And actually, I feel a little bit calmer now. I got my venting, my soapbox off my chest with this bill. Now let's actually discuss it through the video content that Anna has been able to curate for us. So some of these, right, are a little older. So what we need to do is find... well, some of this we just didn't get to cover on Tuesday. Did you have anything specifically about the bill being passed right now and it discussing what's in it? Okay, this one would probably be the best one for that because it's within the past 21 hours, which would mean all of the changes that were made should be present
until I
in
found
this.
Rula. Yesterday.
And hold on. All right, so we got Hjavik. In the USSR, there was one of the most correct propagandas that we are all fraternal nations. You can't belittle others, live in friendship and cooperation. The Kazakhs, for example, 100 years ago, roamed the steppes and practiced slavery. The USSR destroyed the slave system and gave the Kazakhs powerful industrialization, free education, total literacy, and a job. Right. And that's the thing. It's not like the USSR was all bad. I mean, sure, there was the Cold War aggression and this, that, and the other, and, you know, the police state, but they also did things like that. You know, it's just like the United States of America committed genocide during Manifest Destiny. Excuse me. And slavery and, indentured servitude and so on and so forth. But like what have we done in America that has been beneficial to the masses? Because I'm really not thinking what we have done institutionally that has had a massive positive impact on predominantly non-white citizens. Because the second we formed unions, that was a big brouhaha. We and industrialists have spent the past 80 years trying to dissolve those. Ever since Social Security and Medicare passed, that's been trying to get dissolved, and now they finally succeeded. So, I mean, at least Russia ended slavery right off the rip and gave people industrialization and free education and literacy. America has never done that. Fuck. Has America ever been great? I'm assuming you managed to speak to Anna. And so you're back. Okay. Yeah, we really don't play that game because partially because it can damage the actual channel, but also because we vehemently are militantly against Zionism. So just to clarify that. All right. So you've heard me talk about the bill. I haven't gone into any nuance, obviously, and then I got into a little verbal back and forth there. So what my role and responsibility as a representative would be to represent what's actually happening, right? So let's talk about the bill.
After a record-breaking 26 hours of debate on the Senate floor, the One Big Beautiful Bill, and yes, that's its actual legal name, made it one step closer to pass.
I thought Chuck Schumer got that stricken, that it's no longer called the One Big Beautiful Bill. I thought that was his bragging point, that it's no longer called the Big Beautiful Bill. So it literally, the one thing that Chuck Schumer actually did was immediately undone. Like, are you fucking... Like, how fucking useless is this man? And one more historical quip on the USSR. Equal rights were given to women immediately with the advent of Soviet power, and they even propagandized that even a cook woman should be able to manage the state. Yeah, Leninism, okay, here's the thing, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and just claim that Russia didn't have its faults. I mean, there was quite a bit of violence and murder during the Bolshevik uprising and the stabilization of the USSR, but they did give unprecedented rights and freedoms to people that had been predominantly marginalized. But one of the things modern Russia even is still struggling with today is homosexuality and immigration, right? So it's not like there was still the good, right? Women's rights was way before the United States. But on the other hand, you couldn't be gay. That was still a fucking problem. The suffering of pro-Israel trolls have this app that pays them money to comment on streams, comment sections to defend Israel. Pretty much you can make good money by just shilling that country, and all that comes from US tax dollars? That's news to me. That's fucking insane. If you can actually make money by being a pro-Israel troll. That's disgusting. That's disturbing, actually. Let's send a link, actually. I would love to discuss that. I can't do the stream by speaking and texting at the same time, but I can try speaking a little slower, especially while you're on. My main takeaway is that Russia has done good things, socially speaking, but they still struggle with many other social concerns, such as homosexuality and immigration. Just because Russia was quick to offer support for women's rights doesn't mean that racial equality and sexual equality is something that Russia still to this day doesn't struggle with. We really do. Oh wait, I was about to click the CC button on the YouTube. Actually, hold on a second. All right. If I click on it, okay, it starts off muted. But if I click on this and I do settings, advanced, that's just a video player. I can clip it. There's the benefits, the dragon pets, polls, quick actions, edit layer. I thought maybe there was a built-in closed captions. Maybe there isn't. I genuinely thought there was, and I actually thought I clicked it. But that it wouldn't necessarily show, obviously, on my streaming screen, but maybe, like, on the individual viewer? But yes, no, you're right. I do want it to be accessible. Maybe I have to, download a widget. Maybe I have to download a widget. So we will get in. Here, you know what? I'll even type that in. I'm fairly fast at typing, but I can't type and speak at the same time. A Chan user and far right. Just here to hear the opposite side and dunk on Israel. I don't know if I can find articles about it anymore because it was in the news 10 years ago. Oh, fair enough. I'll go to work. Otherwise, it's time to continue making the game. Hey, keep up the gaming because programming sucks and it's difficult to keep the energy and the artistry going. But yeah, don't be late to work because of us. Oh, so it's like that. I mean, that doesn't make me not believe that it's true. But Unreal Engine, Unity. It wouldn't. So like, it's one of those things where I don't disbelieve you. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is true. But I don't disbelieve you because I believe Israel would do something like that. Because literally, that is what this administration does to fill seats at events and how Truth Social operates. Like, you do get paid to play, right? So it would not surprise me. And it would not surprise me that it got buried. There are many topics that I have tried to find since getting involved in politics, which was only 2015, that occurred between that 10 years that I can no longer find. Obviously, right now that I'm thinking about it, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I have definitely tried to go back and find information about a given subject, and it's already buried. Am I from the US? Yes. And I'm going to be a little sarcastic when I say that, on account of that I want to be president. Ah, shit. Am I stabbing myself from my shirt? Or did I cut myself on my finger? Do I write HTML on my website? I know how to write HTML, but for the most part, I don't have to. But that's because I'm using a web hosting service that allows you to build shit. Last time the news found the app, they deleted it and moved it to somewhere else on Godot. Yeah. Oh, no, Godot being the developer program. Yep, I remember. Yep. But that tracks. And that's also true. I mean, Signal actually was one of those types of apps for a while there. They disappeared, came back, and now it just is owned by Russia. WhatsApp is, of course, owned by Meta, so it's not any better. Is it just me, or is this pitch to make the BBB happen in the 21st century of trickle-down pitches? No, what it is, it's worse than that, pop culture, and we're going to get into it. I just keep getting sidetracked. I keep getting sidetracked. This is the beer push. This is the consolidation of power of Nazi Germany. Like, the BBB is that scene in Star Wars where the Chancellor becomes the Supreme Chancellor of the first intergalactic empire. The democracy falls to a thunderous applause. Like, the bill is literally those moments in history where democracy disappears, where the republic disappears, and we install dictatorship. That is what the bill is. Ruskvia, is that what it is? All right. Hey, our Russian friends found our chat. Let's go. Do svidanya, unless that's goodbye, because I thought I've been doing greetings this whole time. And I doubt Russian to English Google Translate's any good. Hello and welcome to the stream. Oh, because it all right, here we go. Privet I dobro posh-alovat na stream. Tell me if I butchered that or not. Let me actually wait, no, I got chips here, that'll do. Let me grab a bowl then. Let me I'm hungry. I need to eat something. We really do need to look into a multi-language translation interaction thing like that, you know what I mean? How did you finish the text of your stream. It says step 9 and 10 of autocracy is finalized. We are not free with the 813. Wait, that got cut off? Hold on. You're not seeing this? That's what it should be. Now, see, I'm on my desktop, so it may or may not be different. Now, okay, hold on. I have to say one more thing, all right? I am not pro-corporation. I will never do a sponsorship as a Twitch streamer. I don't care if I become as big as Hasanabi. I will never do that because I'm a political streamer and an aspiring politician, right? So what I'm about to do is not a promotion of any kind. What I do think is hilarious is that Chips have made a beer can chicken flavor potato chip. It's the most fucking American thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, in the US, AIPAC is the biggest thing. Israel was bought by the Rothschilds family from the British, so it's pretty much a family-owned country, no, not a democracy there either. Now, normally, I would call you out on saying, quit conflating the Rothschilds with Judaism and conspiracy theories, except we actually, 2 or 3 weeks ago, ran into that situation where somebody brought up that Caesarea or something like that is a city owned by the Rothschilds, and I was like, "Listen here, you little shit. We're not gonna do Jewish propaganda or anti-Jewish propaganda on the stream." He's like, "No, look that up," and we did. We looked it up live, like where this page is. We looked it up, and the Rothschilds do own an entire city in Israel. And it is a center of power, of thought, of commerce, of technology, of everything. Everything that makes a country something is in Israel, is in Caesarea, I believe is what it was called. And it is the Rothschilds' home base of operations. So it isn't actually much of a stretch to say that the Rothschilds do have a significant influence on Israel and, of course, Israeli policy. And, of course, AIPAC being an arm, although not... they are an arm of Israel, but legally they're not. Again, we've brought this question up. How and why and what does AIPAC have on not just U.S. politicians, but all, like, so many fucking politicians from everywhere from Europe to South America and, of course, the United States? AIPAC has its grubby little claws in politicians. So, like, what are they fucking doing? Yeah, money and blackmail, sure, but, like, that's a lot of money and blackmail from a country that's being funded by the United States of America. So how does a country that's funded by the United States of America have the money and resources to blackmail and bribe politicians from all countries in the Western Hemisphere? My question.
When JD cast the tie-breaking vote, advancing the Senate amended bill back to the House of Representatives. Trump and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson have both set the self-imposed deadline of July 4th, very symbolic, to officially pass the bill and get it on Trump's desk for signature. With that tight timeline, Johnson and House Republicans have their work cut out for them today, Wednesday, July 2nd. Given how fucking awful this bill is, to the point that even some Republicans are willing to point it out, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, the
Yeah, so when I referred to AIPAC, you might be listening for AIPAC, but we shortened that to AIPAC in the United States. But no, you're right. And it's not as if the Rothschilds family doesn't have historical connections to influencing war, conflict, and international policy. The Rothschilds, absolutely, there is absolute historical evidence that they financed both sides of World War I and financed both sides of World War II and had heavy influence in Europe on either side during both periods. So I'm not saying that there isn't justification to say that the Rothschilds are a very manipulative family. It's just usually when they're brought up, it's to be anti-Semitic. Well, as it turns out, we only invaded Iraq after 9/11 because of the push of the AIPAC lobby from Israel. So, I mean, that was news to me as well. But I do remember thinking, why did it take us so long to wage war in the Middle East after 9/11? If we were going to wage war, why wouldn't we have done it like the next day? And it's because we weren't going to, but Israel pushed for it. And then we find out that Israel was going to launch a false flag on U.S. soil after they attacked Iran so that we would attack Iran on their behalf. And when Iran told the United States, like, hey, that's what Israel's trying to do, we stopped it and then just pretended it never happened. So, like, AIPAC 100% has their grubby little mitts in the throat of the United States of America.
MAGA wench herself, it's unclear if this thing will pass by the given deadline. But Trump's
Okay, and here's the thing, too. Marjorie Taylor Greene rips the bill. Blah, 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 blah. Didn't she just fucking vote for it? Like, even when these politicians attempt to grow a spine and show that they have testicular or even ovarial fortitude, they end up bending and breaking anyway, like the fucking cowards that they are.
Clear today, so he'll be actively making phone calls and twisting arms, likely yelling angrily at holdouts over the phone, as he is known to do, to force this thing through. Because ultimately, he doesn't give two shits what's in this thing, as long as he...
All right, hold on. It's my job to do commentary on the stream, okay, lady? And see, look, you're doing sponsors. How can we trust you? What's in the bill?
You can go to my link, aura.com/opening up as a House bill. So it's unclear whether they'll meet their deadline, but the major implications of the bill will likely remain the same, with some minor tweaks as they iron out the details. So I decided to go ahead and make the episode about the one big beautiful bill today, even though we don't have the final version, because very few people know what's in this thing, and there is...
All right. I have to address incipients before we can continue this, and I have to finish chewing my potato chip. But I would encourage you, incipients, especially since you said you're an anarcho, far right, whatever. And I'm not saying it to be dismissive. I'm saying I don't remember what you said on what your ideology is. I would strongly encourage you, with your knowledge and history of things like the Rothschilds in Israel, to recognize that that isn't representative of the Semitic peoples of Judea or Palestine, right? And that is 1000% purely indicative of the Zionist ideology, which is appalling and should be offensive, should be seen as offensive. So, and exactly, many Jewish people don't support Zionism. And in fact, more Jewish people don't support Zionism now than at any other time in history. And it's actually a majority for the first time in history. So I strongly encourage you to restructure your knowledge of this situation from being anti-Semitic to being anti-Zionist. Obviously, we will ban you if you say anti-Semitic shit, but you get the idea.
Still time to annoy the shit out of your Republican representatives, unless this thing goes through before I manage to publish this video, in which case it's still very relevant because it's going to tell you what's in this thing, okay? The Democrats are all standing opposed to the bill and are finally throwing up the procedural hurdles we have been begging them for months. They won't do anything, but they at least delay the process and make it a headache for Republicans. Where relevant, I will highlight the parts that are different in the House and the Senate versions of the bill. I think a major project for Democrats, after they're done doing too little too late in the process of passing this bill, is to get way fucking better at hammering home how awful this thing is for the average American. That work has largely been left up to the Congressional Budget Office, nonprofit advocacy groups, and the few Democrat stands advertise. The White House has its own big, beautiful bill website. It highlights key economic factors that Americans will care about, like no taxes on tips, in an easy to understand way. It makes it interactive, and it makes it all seem legit. President's Council of Economic Advisors, and presents financial outcomes from this bill that are dramatically and like
Anna, we have our own website. What are you talking about?
shockingly different than every other think tank or nonprofit's predictions about the economic outcomes of this bill. Their methodology is opaque at best, and they make very generous assumptions about financial outcomes that aren't backed by history or economics or reality. But it makes it look really good on this website. I didn't find anything similar on the Democrat side. Like, do they not have access to web developers? What is going on? It's just Chuck Schumer in a corner yelling, "It's bad, Trump is bad," over and over, and Cory Booker making PowerPoint slides. Like, what are we doing? Okay, so this bill is nearly 1,000 pages long, but for the ease of understanding, there are just a few broad strokes categories of changes. 1, taxes in the form of credits and deductions. 2, Medicaid.
This lady has spent 5 minutes and 11 seconds building up the next 19 minutes of this video. Like, get to the fucking point. Funny you should mention that, Incipients. I think, didn't we just get into an argument with somebody yesterday? Or was it Tuesday? Where we were talking about political ideology on the spectrum? Because somebody said I was authoritarian or something like that. And it's like, buddy, no, I believe in central structure, but with a strong and robust social safety net. And we had the Overton window open and all that. But the thing is about political nihilism, that is the ideal eventual outcome for human interaction, right? Where we don't have the need for a government. We just do things as they are needed because we want to participate in them. I agree with you. That is the ideal. It's just we're nowhere close to being mature enough for that. And of course, welcome back, apolitical daddy. English is my third language, so hard to say my point. I'm not against Jewish people. I'm against their system in Israel in general. It's a dictatorial ethno-state. You're right. I guess, Anna, if you can kind of type out for him, we're just saying, instead of using Jewish people or conflating Israel with Judaism in any capacity, just to use Zionism. That's the word I think he's looking for. No way y'all got a bill that made healthcare worse. Did not think that was possible. You know what? I mean, at this rate, we're just not going to have healthcare. I mean, at this point, private insurance companies already deny so much healthcare that shareholders are banking on those denials and are suing the CEOs of these major insurance companies because they are batshit insane afraid of another Luigi rising amongst the ranks. So, I mean, we have healthcare in name only.
3, SNAP or food stamp benefits. 4, federal student loans. And 5, immigration, plus a few miscellaneous. Let's start with the changes to the tax code. That is the bulk of this bill. You will notice a theme that these changes tend to mainly...
You know what's kind of funny? Taxes is the least of my concerns about this bill, but it's the bulk of it. And she's going to go into it, and that's fine. We'll learn something together. But, like, fucking with the tax code is probably the least concerning thing out of all of this. The thing that's concerning is the $3 trillion slash to the 813. 813 billionaires just got a $3 trillion windfall. That is concerning. What I have to pay in taxes and what you have to pay in taxes is going to be, yes, impactful. It's going to be impactful. But, like, unless she's tying in the taxes being the biggest part, including the fact that we're expanding federal spending and gutting Medicaid without changing how much is being taken out of our paychecks, then I don't really give a shit that we can fix the tax code, right? All right, so my taxes go up 3%. That's a problem. That sucks. It hurts me. It's going to devastate even poorer people than me. But that's something that can be fixed. But cutting Medicaid kills people. That will kill people. There's no fixing dead people.
We benefit middle and higher income earners. According to analysis by the Tax Foundation, quote, the bills spend far too much money on political gimmicks and carve-outs. The bills further complicate the tax code in several ways, sending taxpayers through a maze of new rules and compliance costs that in many cases likely outweigh potential tax benefits. First and foremost, the bill makes permanent the cuts of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017, passed during Trump's first term. So those tax brackets would remain in place and change for inflation moving forward. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, as a reminder, lowered the tax rate for all Americans except the lowest wage earners. Okay, and then they made a bunch of changes to tax credits and deductions. The Senate bill would permanently raise the child tax credit to $2,200. The House bill would raise it to $2,500, but require at least one parent to have a Social Security number. That sounds nice, but the problem is that you don't just get that amount of money if you have a kid. That's the cap. The actual amount you get is calculated based on 15% of your adjusted gross income. Additionally, it is only partially refundable.
And she's probably going to say the number. So I apologize for mansplaining in advance. The $5,000 or the $2,500 cap, if one of the parents has a Social Security number, is a cap and a maximum, but it's calculated through 15%. Well, the way to get 15% is to divide 2,500 by 0.15, which we will do. I think I could do the math in my head, but let's just, which you have to make at least $16,666.67 per year, which is $8 an hour. So actually, that might be a decent thing then. I thought this was going to be a little bit more egregious than that. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there are plenty of people who don't even meet that standard because they're working part-time. Again, this would be if you made $8 an hour working 40 hours a week. And if you're working a job that pays just over minimum wage in the first place, you're not working a full 40. And that is what I'm certain she's going to discuss here.
If you owe a bunch in taxes and make enough money, then you would get that full $2,200 as a deduction to the amount of taxes you owe. So you're paying back $2,200 less than you would. But if your income is lower, then you typically get a return on your taxes as opposed to paying into taxes. The refundable portion is only worth $1,700. We already have this tax credit. It's currently capped at $2,000 under Trump's original Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And according to CNBC, 17 million children do not receive the full $2,000 tax credit because their families don't earn enough or owe enough taxes. So the increase benefits middle and higher income earners the most. The bill includes an increase of the SALT deduction, which stands for state and local tax deduction. That would increase to $40,000. The House made it permanent, but the Senate bill would revert the SALT deduction back to $10,000 by 2030. The benefit phases out for those who have more than $500,000 in income. What that means is that it allows taxpayers who itemize their deductions, meaning instead of taking the standard deduction, which is just a blanket amount, they itemize each deduction individually to deduct the state and local income and property taxes that they pay. So if I pay $10,000 in state taxes, I can include that as an expense in my federal tax deductions, effectively lowering my taxable income. As you can imagine, this deduction mainly helps upper middle income households. Lower earners generally don't itemize their tax deductions because they earn a regular W-2 income through a paycheck and don't have enough deductions to warrant doing an itemized deduction. Next, the incredibly hyped up no tax on tips or overtime. That's a little misleading. You'll still pay some taxes on your tips and overtime depending on how much you earn. You can avoid paying taxes on up to $25,000 of tip income and up to $12,500 in overtime income if you earn less than $150,000 a year as an individual. The income limits are key to at least trying to help curb against the wealthy abusing this rule, which was a concern that high income industries would start reclassifying some of their income as tips to creatively avoid paying taxes. This is one of the only provisions I saw that genuinely seems to benefit tip industry workers who tend to be on the lower end of the income spectrum. And because of this, the Trump regime is really playing it up, including that interactive calculator on the big, beautiful Bill White House website. But as we'll discuss, when all is said and done, the other cuts in this bill mostly cancel out the lowered taxes on tips and overtime for the lowest wage earners. The bill creates a new type of savings account. It expands 529 college savings accounts, which low-income Americans generally don't use, and creates Trump accounts. The government will deposit $1,000 into your Trump account as an incentive for having a baby. So you have a baby, you get $1,000. And then taxpayers can add up to $5,000 per year that will grow tax-free until the beneficiary, the baby, withdraws the money at 18 or older. According to to the tax foundation, quote, "The major effect is to introduce a new baby bonus entitlement that requires taxpayers to track yet another small dollar account for 18 plus years. This is a missed opportunity to simplify saving and improve financial security for all Americans." The bill creates a senior bonus deduction. The House proposed $4,000. The Senate raised it to $6,000. It's called a bonus, but it's not a bonus. It's a tax deduction for individuals over 65 with up to $75,000 in adjusted gross income. This will be helpful for middle-income seniors, but will not benefit low-income seniors because they don't make enough money to pay taxes and therefore won't benefit from a tax deduction. The bill includes a car loan interest deduction, where individuals with less than $100,000 in annual income could deduct up to $10,000 of annual interest in new auto loans. Jonathan Smoke, chief economist at Cox Automotive, told CNBC that in practice would amount to about $500 in tax deductions for the average new loan borrower. And the car must be assembled in the US, so only limited cars qualify. The bill guts Biden-era Inflation Reduction Act green energy tax credits, especially for individuals, such as those that you get when you buy an electric car or solar panels for your house. It introduces Foreign Entity of Concern, or FEOC, restrictions.
So I am sorry for just sitting here and listening to the lady here. But she's doing a great job of explaining it. But that solar panel tax credit was fucking huge for me personally. I had a house. I put solar panels on it, and I got $16,000 in tax credits back. That was huge, and is part of the reason why I did not end up actually losing that house after I lost my job from COVID and was unemployed for like 9 months after that. That $16,000 actually helped me pay my bills and my rent and stuff like that. So the fact that they got rid of something that I know of personally and that I have personally benefited from, knowing that it can and will have absolutely benefited and helped other families across the country while still promoting clean energy, which is something we really want to do, is just insane.
So energy projects that would qualify for a credit.
So the SALT thing that she was discussing is the state and local taxes, meaning say you make $60,000 a year. Actually, that's not even reasonable because 60% of Americans don't even make enough money to survive off of. So let's say you make $40,000 a year. You would pay whatever the federal tax bracket is, but when you pay your taxes, your federal taxes, you would then be able to itemize what you paid in the state and the local taxes. And if you're paying like 3% state tax on $40,000, that's $1,200. And then local tax would be similar, but usually half of that. So call it $600. So say you're paying $1,800 in state and local taxes. Well, before you actually finish filing your federal tax, you would be able to deduct $1,800 from your gross income. But that's only if the deductions that you're already making, your blanket one, the one that you just get to do, the personal deduction, which is around $13,000, I believe. If you don't have more to deduct than that $13,000, then the SALT tax, the SALT thing, you can't use anyway. You can only use a deduction if it meets or exceeds your personal deductions in the first place, which is asinine. The youth in Finland have deteriorated really hard. I thought they're still the happiest nation in the world because all the sad people kill themselves. Hey, that's one way to do it, though. And aren't you a nihilist? I mean, I'm just saying.
But that include involvement from China or Chinese-made parts, for example, wouldn't be eligible. One of the only tax credits it leaves intact from the Inflation Reduction Act is the Clean Fuel Production Tax Credit, a credit for businesses that create clean fuel. And one of my best friends actually works in sustainable fuels and was able to give me some tea on this one, so thank you to Meg. She explained that to qualify for the credit, the fuels have to reduce emissions by a certain amount. But the change in the big beautiful bill allows for certain emissions to no longer be counted. And the kind you don't have to count towards your emissions totals anymore are the ones that use more corn and soy. So it looks like an environmental credit, but it instead just further subsidizes big ag, corn, and soy producers. companies who are major contributors to climate change. And this workaround was actually first introduced by my Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar in the Farmer First Fuel Incentives Act. And it served big business interests so well that even though it didn't pass, the Republicans were like, hell yeah, looks good, and shoved it into this bill. Okay, so moving on to healthcare. One additional change to the tax code is that the bill removes premium tax credits that low-income Americans can use to help offset the cost of health insurance premiums. The Senate version of the bill also cuts $1 trillion from Medicaid. The House version made $800 billion in cuts. This includes cuts to states and to providers, which would force states to make up the difference either by increasing state taxes, tightening qualification requirements, or eliminating certain benefits. And providers will have to close their doors or operate while understaffed without that funding, which will impact everyone trying to access our healthcare system, regardless of whether or not they get Medicaid benefits. There are new work rules that would require Medicaid beneficiaries who are 19 to 64 years old to work at least 80 hours per month unless they qualify for an exemption. That means that they would need to send proof to the government that they are working or exempt from work requirements regularly. Eligibility redeterminations would be required to happen every 6 months instead of every 12 months like they are now. And every new check-in presents a new opportunity for people to fall through the cracks, either from bureaucratic mishandling or just living in poverty and having to also remember to file shit with the federal.
So hold the fucking door.
Work at least 80 hours per month, regardless of whether or not they get Medicaid benefits. There are new work rules that would require Medicaid beneficiaries who are 19 to 64 years old.
So we're going to force grandma to go back to work after she retired, probably, and then prove it unless there's evidence that she can't work. Secondly, that's a slippery fucking slope outright. Okay, so right now the working age to get Medicaid is 64. Who's hiring 64-year-olds? Who's hiring 60-year-olds? Who's hiring 50-year-olds? All right? There's already an economic crisis with this in the fact that our country, our capitalist hellscape, does not support elderly in the workforce in the first place, unless you had been working there for 30 or 40 years prior to. So this is going to kill people outright simply because they will not be able to re-enter the workforce. And again, if they're adding more requirements, as in having work, it's going to change their income, which might prevent them from getting some of the other benefits that they are eligible for at the state and local levels. Like, this is just this. You can't even discuss how canceling Medicaid and changing the requirements are just going to be impactful in a vacuum, because there are going to be so many downstream impacts that we don't even know how all of the dominoes are going to fall yet. That's insane.
Who work at least 80 hours per month unless they qualify for an exemption. That means that they would need to send proof to the government that they are working or exempt from work requirements regularly. Eligibility redeterminations would be required to happen every 6 months instead of every 12 months like they are now. And every new check-in presents a new opportunity for people to fall through the cracks, either from bureaucratic mishandling or just living in poverty and having to also remember to file shit with the federal government.
Correct, pop culture. It's violating the 10th. I'm actually not as familiar with the 10th as I am some of the other amendments. So I'm going to have to Google what that is real quick. Reserves powers not delegated to the federal government nor prohibited to the states or the people. Wait, I keep saying that that's the 9th. So what's the 9th amendment? The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others. Oh, both of them cover the people. Never mind. Got it.
I already made a whole episode about why work requirements do not work. The Senate version of the bill has stricter requirements for parents. They can only claim work exemptions if they have a dependent 14 or under. And I guess the idea being your kid is 15 now, get back to work and send that child into the mines while you're at it. She yearns for them anyway. There would also be a new $35 co-payment charge to patients using Medicaid services. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that 12 million Americans would lose insurance by 2034 under the big, beautiful bill. Another major change is that food stamp or SNAP benefits will be reduced. The Congressional Budget Office estimates around 40 million people may have their SNAP benefits affected by these cuts, including 16 million children. The bill requires states to make up the difference in the budget cuts. Typically, SNAP is 100% federally funded.
Now, remember yesterday, I know specifically we went over this yesterday, when I applied on live stream for SNAP, or at least went through the documentation that would be the application form, you could not have more than $100 in your fucking bank account in order to be eligible for SNAP. And they are reducing how many benefits you get on top of that. So not only do you have to be literally dirt poor, which apparently does apply to quite a few Americans, now you're getting even less than the less that you were getting in the first place. In fucking sanity.
Work requirements for SNAP. SNAP already has some work requirements, but it would require recipients aged 55 to 64 to be working in order to receive benefits, as well as requiring parents with children 14 and over to work. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, about 600,000 low-income households would see their SNAP benefits cut by an average of $100 per month.
Okay, $100 per month? I take at least $600 a month for food, and that's because of the inflated cost of food, right? So what, I just don't eat for the last week of the month? What? Also, if both parents have to work, that means they have to start covering childcare costs. And that is typically $2,500 a month, $1,500 a month. Like, what? The ultra rich not even wanting to grant food stamps to the ultra poor. And again, the 813, I believe I finally came up with the phrase that I would like to be catchy, but I can't guarantee that it will take catchy. We are not free with the 813. We are not free with the 813. We cannot be free as a country if the 813 can ensure that we suffer through poverty so that they can get a 4% tax break. Mind you, all of these cuts are to finance a 4% tax break to the 813, meaning 813 billionaires are having to pay 4% less taxes, and that is such an egregiously high sum of money, $3.3 trillion, that you have to cut food from children, medicine from children, food from the elderly, and medicine from the elderly at a national scale just to finance their 813 individual tax returns. So to benefit 813 individuals, we have now disenfranchised over 40 million Americans. So absolutely fucking not. And whatever fucking piece of shit, was it Economist or whatever? Who after Zoran got the Democratic nomination for New York City said he's going to start executing people in Central Park? Zoran's not going to do that. He doesn't have the fucking balls to do that because he wants to be mayor of New York City. He wants to be a politician. He wants to represent his city and his community and his people, and he's Muslim and he knows that that's really going to end badly for him. I, however, am a white male veteran of the United States fucking Air Force. And I, as president, 100% will execute every last fucking billionaire in this country for treason, for undermining our Constitution, for crimes against humanity. If displacing 40 million people and 16 million kids can't eat isn't a crime against humanity or an attempt at genocide or ethnic cleansing or any such thing, then I clearly don't know what those words mean. So as president, not only am I going to charge those motherfuckers, I'm going to see to it with extreme prejudice that they are found guilty, and then I will personally execute no few of them. In Central Park is a great place. I would be just as happy with doing it on the presidential lawn. I don't care where we execute them, but I think Central Park is as good a place as any. As good a place as any. Fuck billionaires. Honestly, there was a time in my life where I didn't really care if you were a billionaire. Just stop becoming a billionaire at the expense of others. Now, it's not even that they are still doing that, right? But that's not enough. It's not enough to keep billions of people in poverty. It's not enough to poison our water and our air and our land and our food and everything else that we have to contend with. No, that's not enough. Now they want to ensure that grandma dies and Timmy dies at the same fucking time, whether through medical negligence or starvation, while their parents or caregivers work themselves to death under even increasingly more dangerous conditions, because, oh, by the way, it's not enough that they are exploiting workers. They also want us to work in extremely unsafe, unsanitary, unhealthy conditions on top of that, because it's not enough that we're poor. We must suffer for being poor as well. So no, the longer this goes on unchecked, the more vile and malevolent billionaires become, the more disconnected from reality and the human race they become, and they view us as insects and themselves as gods. And I, for one, want to disabuse them of the notion of their immortality. So,
average household receives about $320 per month currently. So that's a reduction.
That's because I'm so handsome.
By, on average, about a third at the same time that prices everywhere are skyrocketing. And in the area of education, student loans will be affected. The bill creates caps on how much money students can borrow. It puts a lifetime borrowing limit of about $250,000. It caps parent borrowing through Parent Plus loans at $20,000 per year with a $65,000 lifetime limit. It eliminates Grad Plus loans, caps unsubsidized loans for grad students at $20,500 per year and $100,000 lifetime, though professional degrees like medical and legal degrees get up to $50,000 per year with a $200,000 lifetime cap.
So, and I think she's about to say this, so I apologize again for mansplaining and interrupting. If you're reading these numbers and you can put two and two together, this bill basically made it impossible for the middle class to access an education, for the working class at all to access an education, because institutions keep raising their tuition rates, for one. For outright, they keep raising it regardless. For two, the prestigious universities are way, way, way above that. So you're not getting into Yale or Princeton or MIT or any of that shit anymore. And now your parents can't help you either, which is what many poor working class students rely on. Now, it seems good on paper. Well, we're preventing students from tackling $250,000 of debt at the ripe old age of 18 before they've even collected a single paycheck. So on paper, that's fine, but that's not the solution. Like, this is the problem, but this is a solution to an entirely different problem. This is a solution to people's financial access to education. The solution to people having problems accessing the financial costs of education is to eliminate the fucking costs. Education should be free. Period. Fucking dot. And this, the only thing this does is ensure that only people in the upper 10 percentile of incomes can even afford to go to college. And even then, it's probably more like the upper 5 percentile, right? People who are making $200,000 combined plus and can actually save money to a degree amount of money, right? Because I make $80,000 a year, all right, as a maintenance planner in Ohio. I make extremely good money Not only just for my profession, but for my state and, of course, my generation. I am in like the top 15 percentile. I'm good when it comes to money. But there is no fucking way that even I, making $80,000 a year with a $2,000 monthly mortgage, plus the bills that are going to be, let's just round it to $400 a month, plus my $600 grocery expenses, which would be $600, we're at $3,000 already, and I take home $4,600. So that remaining $1,600 is going to be car insurance, it's going to be gas, and it's going to be oh shit money. But let's just say car insurance and gas is each month, say $200, whatever. That would still be what, $1,400 a month? Okay, let's do some math here. Say I have a child tomorrow. Times 12 times 18. $1,400 a month static would net me $302,000 or $302,400 over the course of 18 years. However, not if I have to pay for a kid, which statistically now costs around $400,000 to raise a child from birth to adulthood in the United States of America. And again, if I have a child, that implies that I likely have a wife. So, and if I'm the only one working, great, we don't have to cover for childcare costs, but now I have to pay for out-of-pocket health insurance. Notice how I didn't mention that before? Well, that's because I am a veteran of the United States Air Force, and I'm grandfathered into the VA healthcare system, which means I don't have to pay a dime for healthcare. Now, if I want vision and dental, if I need dental care, then I have to pay out-of-pocket. But if I have a family, or even if I'm a single father, guess who's not covered by the VA? Little Timmy, little Susie, little Svetlana. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I find a nice Russian lady. Maybe I find a nice little Latina lady, and her name is Analea Cinderella Ladiosa Carbrero Mexico Latina Argentina Escobar. I don't know. Y'all have long ass fucking names. Whatever. There is no fucking way on God's green earth that with $80,000 a year, raising a child, even by myself, I could save money in any capacity for college that would not require more than that $65,000 or $250,000 worth of savings to send little Junior off to the college. No fucking way. And I make what is 80,000 in the percentile? What? Stupid fucking thing. Seriously, Google, quit being a fucking cunt. What percent of workers make 80K or more? AI is contradicting itself, which is not what I was looking for anyway. Is in the 75th percentile. So I'm in the upper 25% of earners. That's what it is. Okay, so still, I'm in the top 25% of earners in America, and there is no way if I had a child tomorrow, I could send her to college or him to college. Under these rules especially. No fucking way. I would have to make at least $100,000. I would say at least $100,000 to cover sundry expenses and oh shit things. So this right here, from someone who would theoretically have the finances to send somebody to college, could not send someone to college because of how this has been changed. How can I afford burger then? Exactly. I need cheeseburger. And child is going to want cheeseburger too if they're from my genes. I love cheeseburger. My kid's definitely going to love cheeseburger. And they wonder why women say no to pregnancy. They know that this is exactly why the birth rate has been in decline, because teen pregnancy, which is the number one reason why birth rates are high, have been so dramatically reduced because it worked. Whatever we were doing to reduce teen pregnancy finally fucking worked. But because of that, women with careers and jobs and means aren't having kids because those careers, jobs, and means are not conducive and sufficient enough to raise a child. And don't even get me started on the useless men in society. You know how many abusive sociopathic men there are in society that have no business being in a relationship, let alone parenting a fucking child? Like, there is zero incentive for a woman age 25 to 35 to settle down, get married, and have a child and sacrifice her life, freedom, and financial security for some man's sperm. Like, there is no fucking incentive. Speaking of Russians, he's naming his future child with you. Listen. That's not what I was saying. I was trying to think of a Spanish name and I couldn't. And I remember making fun of Ana La Diosa's name a lot in a funny way. Because she has like 4 names, and every time I refer to her by her government name, I come up with every single Spanish name I can think of, and then hit enter, and be like, no wonder people are so mad at Latinos right now. You can't say their names. Anyway, speaking of Russians, Ruskvia is accepting Western refugees that don't like their governments. Yeah, I don't doubt that, as long as they're white. Lucky for me, my dad was from Spain and my mom was from Dominican Republic. I can get Dominican and EU citizenship. Fair enough. That jackal had no business having 1 kid, let alone 14. How rich do you have to be in the USA to not care about the news? I'm going to say if you as an individual make around... I think they did a number now. Even if you make $400,000 a year, your quality of life is the equivalent of someone who made only $200,000 or $250,000 a year 5 years ago. So I think it's somewhere in like the $500,000 or $600,000 per annual individual income is when you stop caring about the news. I think that's about it. Keck sociopathy is the way to go. Yeah, apparently is the modus operandi of this administration.
For context, a law degree costs probably around $150,000 for the 3 years that you're in school. You also cannot work during your first year. That's like ABA guidelines. And you probably shouldn't work during the second and third years, especially if you want to get ahead. I got a full ride scholarship for my law school and still went $60,000 into debt to cover the cost of living in Boston for 3 years. If I hadn't gotten any financial aid, I would have easily surpassed that $200,000 borrowing cap. Under the bill, any student loan
again, living, breathing example. She went to law school, had 3 years of living expenses plus her full ride. So this lady is extremely smart for getting a full ride scholarship. Like you got to be somebody in order to get one of those. So she got her full ride and had to get loans to borrow her cost of living. And she would have gone past that debt, which means a qualified lawyer from a poor income would be ineligible to go after that degree because of a loan cap that is out of our control. It's not my fault law school is that fucking expensive. I got in, I passed the tests. What if schools now start doing less scholarships because it's obviously less money in their pockets? What if they keep raising the tuition rate? Now, all of a sudden, the only people who can even afford to become lawyers are rich fucks who are going to violate the law even further. That's not a good thing. They don't even go after employment places that require you to go to college. Forget college to be a doctor. Just give them an operation game and have them get their degree by not touching the edges once that lights up the node. Well, that's the thing. We already have shortages in all degreed professional fields, especially in the medical field. And now you're going to make it damn near impossible for regular people to become doctors when most rich kids just inherit mommy or daddy's business? Like, hello? This doesn't even make socioeconomic sense. Never mind economic sense. Like, you are decimating your social workforce. You're actually hurting the ability for America to stay ahead in whatever field we're currently ahead in, which I don't know that we are anymore, which is, again, another proof of how far we have fallen. My point is, if you don't make it easier for people to receive an education and pursue a professional career, you are going to lose professionals, which means the things that those professionals do in whatever industry or capacity will become less. Those industries will start to diminish, which means our hegemony, supremacy, power, whatever influence in those fields will dwindle as those fields dwindle, because we're also not curating the best and the brightest for the job. We're curating the wealthiest for the job. And as we have seen, rich people do not equate to being smart or capable people, as this bill proves, for one, and as well the evidence speaks for itself.
Just two repayment options remaining: the standard repayment plan or the income-based repayment plan, and it would get rid of unemployment and economic hardship deferment. According to The Hill, advocates warn the new plans will raise the monthly payments for most borrowers.
Buddy, I'm saying the United States is cooked, and I want to be president of the United States. And I'm not a nihilist. I am very much so a dreaming, revolutionary, pie-in-the-sky idiot, apparently. And I agree with you, like, shit is fucked right now. They achieved the American dream and can barely make ends meet. Right. No, people think the American dream just was handed to us by God and Jesus Christ himself in the Bible. And that's not how that worked. It was because we had a diverse workforce that had access to education, training, and resources to build the infrastructures that we enjoy today. And it is now being torn to shreds, lit on fire, pissed on, and the ashes spread to the four winds.
And removes an important student loan safety net. It will push students and parents into more risky and expensive private student loans. And of course, no one should go more than $250,000 into debt for higher education. But this doesn't really address the underlying issue with our education system. Instead, it just limits who can borrow and therefore who can access higher education in this country. Especially combined with the Trump regime's attacks on funding for higher education, this means that schools will be left to make up the difference in financial aid for lower income students, while also receiving less in federal aid unless they bend the knee to Trump. Low-income students will be the ones to be hurt the most. On top of that, the bill increases the amount of tax that private universities have to pay on the income from their endowments. It's currently set at 1.4% tax, and the bill will increase that to 8% for colleges whose endowments exceed $2 million per enrolled student. It is one.
That's interesting to me. Oh.
Once again, an attack on higher ed, especially elite institutions who have the largest endowments.
Oh, I see. So this is going after the libs again. Got it. All right, that tracks.
And another major issue in the bill is immigration, the central policy area of the entire Trump regime, and therefore a very big focus of the bill. The bill gives $350 billion for Trump's immigration agenda, including $46 billion.
Like, just to be clear, and I think I'm correct on this number, but I'm Googling it again because I don't want to spread misinformation. Total Air Force budget. So, just to be clear, just to be very fucking clear right now, the entire U.S. Air Force budget, the United States Air Force of America, the branch that I served in, with all of our pew-pew fighter bombs, the 40 or so bases that we have all across the globe, the 315,000 service members, all of that, mind you, costs around $215.1 billion as of fiscal year 2024. And that is from the Air Force Financial Management website, which is www.saffm.hq.af.mil, which is the official Air Force website. Okay? So the entire Air Force branch, the entire branch of the Air Force gets $215 billion. And this bill just gave $350 billion, an entire more than half of the Air Force budget to just immigration. Now, I don't know about you, but if the military protects our interests at home and abroad, then what the fuck do we need $350 billion for immigration for? Unless it's not for immigration and it's actually for domestic terrorism, to create concentration camps all across our border and within our nation's borders, to expand the Gestapo to terrorize the remaining 62 million Latinos that is also undesirable in this country because we're a bunch of fucking racists. I'm sure she's going to cover that, but wow. This is, yeah.
$1 for that stupid wall he keeps promising, $45 billion for 100,000 migrant detention facility beds, 10,000 new ICE officers, including a $10,000 signing bonus. It would create a...
So this is the fucking part too, right? So you get $45 billion to get 100,000 migrant detention bans. Now let's do some quick math. 3,000 times 365 is 1,095,000. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. 1,095,000 is greater than 100,000, correct? Am I missing something here? We are either going to be sending the remaining 995,000 people to El fucking Salvador. We are going to be turning these 100,000 migrant detention beds into death camps, or we're going to do something even more egregious and turn the 995,000 into slave labor. I'm guessing it's actually going to be death camps. But then again, we have Congress people and administrators or people in this administration saying that they want to get all 62 million Latinos or 65 million Latinos. So that's, again, a 61.9 million shortfall of whatever their intended goals are, which is egregious. And 10,000 agents getting 3,000 a day is also extremely disturbing. And then, and we're going to bribe the states to work with ICE. They'll get $10 billion.
$10 billion fund that would give grants to reward states that help federal immigration officials. It also provides $25 billion for Trump's controversial Golden Dome missile defense system. It will also increase fees that immigrants have to pay to apply for asylum, work authorization, immigration...
Which is the main reason why it takes so long for legal immigrants to become citizens.
Court filings, temporary protected status, and more. And it would limit access to federal benefits so a larger group of immigrants, including refugees, asylum seekers, victims of domestic violence and sex trafficking, would no longer qualify for federal aid. During the court...
Because, again, they are literal victims of actual crimes, and now our government is going to give them an even bigger middle finger to sit and spin on. Has admitted in court that he lies to his audience, just like every podcaster. I mean, I'm not lying to you. To the best of my ability, I am telling you the truth as I understand the facts before me. Only demented people take everything seriously. True. But we live in a demented country. Well, I do. You're in Russia, I think. So, yeah. $215 billion for the Air Force, $350 billion for ICE. Yeah, that is obscene. That is 1,000% obscene. What if USA would slowly attack all nations without nukes? Could that be profitable or nah? No, because that would be World War III or IV. He got his audience to harass the parents of children who were murdered by a sociopath. He can eat shit and die. 100%. US getting Japanese concentration camps again, just like in World War II? Evidently. Seems to be the case. Absolutely seems to be the case.
In the course of these Senate debates on the bill, the Senate threw out the provision in the House bill that would bar states from regulating AI for 10 years. That got thrown out with a vote of 99-1 and is frankly a relief because it would have allowed AI to flourish with no regulation for a decade. Just seeing how far it's come since ChatGPT first crawled its way out of its own primordial sludge a couple years ago, unchecked AI growth for a decade was a scary prospect. The Senate also increased rural hospital subsidies to $50 billion over 5 years, acknowledging that the cuts to Medicaid will hurt providers, especially rural hospitals.
Well, that's good.
For Republicans,
I wasn't aware of that.
A lot of their constituents rely on rural hospitals, so this is something that they can point to and say, see, I'm definitely working for you. Ignore all the other cuts to your benefits. Okay, that's what's in the bill.
Or the fact that we funded ICE to beyond the levels of an actual branch of the military.
What does this mean for you, big picture? After-tax income would temporarily increase for all Americans. Looking at 2026 specifically, because projections beyond that are tricky given that some of these things expire in a few years, according to the Tax Policy Center, the bottom 20% would see an increase of about 0.8% to their after-tax income. The second quintile by 1.6%.
Careful, using this 15-second...
Oh, wow. I just realized we hadn't gotten a single ad this entire time. We were due for one.
40% of wage earners would see income increases of 2.3%. The 60 to 80% wage earners would see increases of 2.6%. And the top 80 to 100% of wage earners would see after-tax income increases of 3.4%.
That's a ridiculously insignificant amount of money that we are not, that is statistically irrelevant. What, you know what 3% of 80,000 is? 2,400. Is 2,400 money? It sure is, but spread over a year? That's an emergency. That's going to the movies. That's $2,400 of hopefully fun money, but it's not going to be able to afford a fucking child. It's certainly not going to be able to pay for a college. It's certainly not going to be able to, it might be able to pay for tires and shit like that. It gives me a little bit of emergency money. But do you know what 0.8% of $20,000 is? Less than $200. It's $160. So not only is that percentage a problem, $2,400 for my income and my quality of life isn't much of a difference. $2,400 for somebody who only makes $20,000 is game changing. So the tax benefit and valuation of who's getting the benefit and the financial volume of that benefit is completely inverted. In-fucking sane.
Sounds pretty hunky-dory until you do the math on what those percentages actually mean, and then start to look at all the other benefits that are being cut beyond the tax savings. Because the reality is that Republicans like to wave lower taxes in the air and say, this is what prosperity looks like. But that ignores the increased cost of living for the lowest income
literally
who lose out
on
social
every
services
single
and safety
front.
nets. And the reality is that a 0.8% increase in after-tax wages for the lowest quintile of income earners means on average they'll be paying about $150 less in taxes for that lowest wage earner in the country.
Which is exactly what I said.
Would see about $750 in lower taxes. $150 or even $750 does not make up for loss in food stamps, Medicaid coverage, and more that this bill does, especially to the lowest earners.
Exactly.
Meanwhile,
if you save $150 in taxes, but your real expenses have gone up $150 a month, or hundreds of dollars a month, one savings of $150 versus monthly return repeatable expenses going up by hundreds is laughable.
Top 80 to 100% of wage earners will pay $12,500 less in taxes on average. And they already don't need SNAP or Medicaid or any of the other programs being cut. So at the cost of an additional $3.3 trillion in the national deficit, the lowest 40% of wage earners will get at most an extra maybe $100 per month to cover the costs associated with gutting social programs, on top of the long-term effects that are even more expensive. That means that nearly 60% of the share of the total tax change from this bill will go to the top 20% of income earners in this country, while the lowest quintile will get 1.4% of the share of the tax benefits. In fact, the Yale Budget Lab released a report on the Senate bill taking all of the changes to the taxes and to Medicaid and to SNAP into account to calculate the real costs for individuals as a result of this bill. They found that the bill will actually result in a decline in income for the bottom 20% of about $700 per year.
Which we just discussed.
While the top 20% would see an increase in income of $5,700 on average.
And here's the thing, too. If you're making $120,000 a year gross, and then you get your... okay. You're making $120,000 after taxes. $5,000 is kind of meaningless because that's an average take home of $10,000 a month. So the $5,700 divided by 12 is, I think, a couple $100. Whoops. 57.35 divided by 12. Oh, I'm sorry, $478, $477.92. So, in order, and it's direct. Oh my God! So, the top earners, which average, I guess, in this thing of a take home of $120,000 a year, are getting around $477.92. They are gaining that, while the lowest earners are losing $695. So not only are they taking money away from the poor, they're also punching them in the dick on the way down. Like, this is insanity. This is absolute insanity. People who are already struggling to make ends meet, who are already 60% of the population, 60% of the population, right? Quintile, the 20%, 40%, 60%, from the third quintile down is already struggling to make their ends meet. And the bottom 40% of that 60% are going to lose more money. This is not only irresponsible, it's deadly. You are going to kill people from this tax thing.
The top 1% would see an increase in their income of about $30,000 a year. And comparing the House and Senate bills, the difference in outcomes is pretty minimal. The House bill would decrease the lowest 20% income by $600 instead of $700 and increase the top 20% income by $6,500 instead of $5,700, which is why I'm talking about this bill now, because they still have to iron out the details, but it's not looking good either way. Now, you may see Republicans touting that this bill will actually reduce the deficit by $507 billion. This is intentionally misleading. They literally asked the Congressional Budget Office to produce two numbers: its typical current law baseline estimate, as well as a current policy baseline. The typical baseline looks at what the law currently is set to do as it's written, and then estimates how much the new policy will cost. The Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is set to expire at the end of this year. So the typical CBO estimate looks at what this will cost if nothing is done, if the tax law was allowed to revert back to the pre-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act levels. That number is estimated to add up to over $3 trillion to the deficit. The Republican requested current policy baseline looks at if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act were to be extended as is, not change, how much this new bill changes the deficit compared to that alternate non-existent reality where the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act just continues unchanged. That's where they're getting the $507 billion deficit reduction numbers. According to the New York Times, quote, "The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a nonpartisan group that calls for lower deficits, has characterized the current policy estimate as a massive budget gimmick used to hide the true cost of legislation. For example, the budget group argued Congress could create a temporary universal health care or Medicare for All program with a single year cost of $3 trillion, and in the next year claim that making the program permanent would cost nothing under a current policy estimate." So despite what clever Republican marketing and White House websites would have you believe, the numbers do not lie. The real effect of the One Big Beautiful Bill is to take money from programs that benefit the poor and put it in the pockets of the people who are already the wealthiest in this country. It is a massive redistribution of wealth that frankly would make Ronald Reagan blush. Republicans are going to point to the lower tax payments and the no tax on tips provisions and say, see, your life is better now than it was before this bill. And meanwhile, 12 million people will lose Medicaid coverage. 16 million children will receive less in food stamps. Hospitals will close. The number of ICE agents on the streets will surge, and the budget deficit will balloon out of control. And the Republican disinformation machine will continue humming on down the road with the entire MAGA cult still on board. The margins are really slim to get this thing passed. The news moves fast, so it might have gone through by the time you're watching this, but if it hasn't, and you have a Republican representative, pick one thing that I mentioned in this episode and call them ceaselessly to complain about it.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that did not happen. It passed. So, everything we just discussed is now our reality, United States of America. So, I know there's a couple foreigners watching this, people who aren't American, lucky you. I see a few of you already in chat. I missed the entire conversation. I apologize. And I think it's not even relevant to anything we're talking about right now. So this passed everything she just discussed. The breaks, the cuts, the expansion of ICE, the devastation of how anybody who isn't poor anybody who isn't rich can actually now not go to college because they won't literally be able to borrow enough money, even though it would put them in debt. They still don't even have the option to put themselves in debt to go to college. A lot of the things that she discussed, I wasn't necessarily aware of, like the education thing. I wasn't aware of that. But to see how just where they're pulling these $3 trillion from so that they can give it to the rich. Again, the 813. I don't even know what the combined wealth of these fucking pieces of shit are. What is the combined wealth of U.S. billionaires? $6.22 trillion. So apparently, they need to add 50% of their existing wealth into their coffers. Like, that makes me so angry. Like, I'm angry right now. Like, I want to punch my screen so fucking hard right now. 801 billionaires hold a combined $6.22 trillion in wealth. And that wasn't enough for them. They had to gut every single one of our fucking institutions, devastate generations of Americans, endanger 40 million children and elderly, so that they could add 50% more to their fucking wealth. Fuck billionaires. There was a time where I would have been like, you know what? I don't really care if billionaires exist, so long as they're not doing it at the expense of others. No, fuck you. You do not deserve to exist. You don't, like, I'm at the point where 9 figures is getting a little too cheeky for me. All right. 8 figures. Okay. You're a superstar. You're a very popular movie star, singer, whatever. All right. I can see 8 figures. You're not. The second you hit 999,999,999.99, I'm taking every last fucking penny from that point forward. Fuck you. There is no fucking reason for this shit to be happening right now. There is none. There is no fucking reason. And if there was a way to accumulate billions upon billions of dollars ethically, I'll change my mind. But as it stands, clearly there isn't an ethical way. And even if there was, these billionaires have proven that even if they achieve it ethically, at the end of the day, that will not be enough for them. They will always want more. Because once you have achieved more financial freedom than you know what to do with, the goal then becomes acquisition of resources and assets. And so it's not even about money and profit at that point. It's about how much can you have? How much can you consume and hold on to? How much can you leverage and control? And that is a fucking problem. Okay, so y'all are still having your own conversation. Okay, so we'll get on to the next video then. They're chatting. I'm talking to you, the remaining viewers. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, I said this is a recap. So learning as to why APAC is dangerous is not necessarily what we need to focus on. Let's see. What do we have up here? Private equity. How deep fascist parallels run. Yeah, we definitely want to cover that one of these days. Yeah, let's talk about the fact that we have information about him.
Said he suffered physical and psychological abuse in the Salvadorian prison where he was detained. The Trump administration deported Abrego Garcia to El Salvador on March 15th, and he was held in the country's maximum security CCOT facility, with the administration describing his deportation as an administrative error. Abrego Garcia said he endured severe beatings, sleep deprivation, and psychological torture during his time at the prison. In new court documents, Abrego Garcia said detainees at CCOT, quote, were confined to metal bunks with no mattresses in an overcrowded cell with no windows, bright lights that remained on 24 hours, and minimal access to sanitation. Abrego Garcia said he lost more than 30 pounds in his first 2 weeks there. The details of his incarceration were revealed after his wife's lawsuit against the Trump administration for deporting him. The Trump administration has asked for the lawsuit to be dismissed now that Abrego Garcia has been returned to the United States. Now Abrego Garcia is being held awaiting trial for human smuggling charges. The DOJ is holding off on deportation while his case is tried, but after that, a DOJ attorney says they plan on deporting Abrego Garcia to a third country that isn't El Salvador.
how fucking malevolent can you get? Like, honestly, I mean, this isn't like, this is why I feel like I'm just sounding like a lunatic whenever I talk about this shit. This is evil. This is evil. What is happening here? This administration is acting with evil intent, with malicious intent, with cruel intent. And we, the people, are just, apparently, 13 of us are on Twitch right now talking about it. But I cannot fathom why people are not marching in the streets. I cannot fathom this. There are people marching in the streets. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying collectively, like beyond the 3%. We barely reached the 3% threshold during the No Kings March. That was once. How is it not every single Latino in America being like, all right, fine, gringo, you want to come after me, Ese? Come after me, Ese. Let's go, Paco. If every single Latino just stormed every single ICE agency before all this extra money starts flowing and their funding and their weaponry and all this, that, and the other, we could take this shit over. Obviously, that would only scare and exacerbate the social perceptions. I'm just saying, there are many ways to skin this cat, and we haven't even begun getting the fucking shaving cream out, let alone the blade. Frazzled, dude. Same. All right. Oh, we have another one.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. It's Pride Month. This weekend may for the terrorism confinement center, where they have no ability to communicate with the outside world, including with their families or legal counsel. The Trump administration's paying the...
Hello, Frazzled. We need people in the streets every week. We need a general strike. We 100% need a general strike. And I think one of y'all said something, if you go shoot somebody, you can blame me. It's like, I have not called anyone to go shoot anybody. What I have called for is to be in the streets, to invade these detention centers and unarrest and undetain these immigrants. That is closer to a general strike. I have advocated for general strike, not armed violence, to be clear.
Bukele government of El Salvador to hold André and the others in SECAT. We believe something like $6 million.
How did that even become what it was?
Described by the administration as the worst of the worst.
Hey, if you tell Xi, he might give me a phone call, and maybe then I can get some resources to actually combat this fascism. That would be fucking fantastic. Because I don't think China wants to see the United States collapse either. Like, I don't think China needs the U.S. to collapse in order for them to profit off of us. In fact, I think they would profit off of us more if we didn't collapse. And I think that's what Xi and the Chinese usually do. German summer camps for politicians. Fun fact, they already go on summer camps to Israel. But I know what you meant there. So it's just fun fact.
In fact, the majority of those sent to SECAT have no serious criminal history. André and others have been accused of being a member of the Tren de Aragua gang in Central El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act. He's now the lead plaintiff in the case JGG versus...
Yeah, so China can just go ahead and bomb some of the coastal red states for 48 hours and then say, all right, we're done. The battle's over. You need to stop fighting back. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Versus Trump, which is seeking the return of André and all the men unlawfully sent to El Salvador under this act. André is a makeup artist. He came to the U.S. to seek asylum, but he never set foot in the
this is why he
country
sounded
and
so
never had a
familiar. He
chance
was
to
the
plead his
makeup
case. He was
artist.
immediately placed in immigration detention here in the U.S., reportedly because of a tattoo he has of a crown. He spent months in detention before he was sent to El Salvador.
No, but here's the worst part, right? It's always about the tattoos. Do you know how popular tattoos are amongst my generation and younger generations now? Like, more people have tattoos now than at any other point in time in history, and they're using that as justification to declare people gang members? Like, again, First Amendment right to free speech, what can and cannot be done to yourself or to be said about the government should not be dictated by the government. And now all of a sudden, you can't be brown and have a tattoo because you'll just go to an El Salvadorian death camp. This is fucking insane. This is absolutely fucking insane. China doesn't need to take over the United States. Europe doesn't need to take over the United States. Nobody needs to take over the United States except for Americans. America needs to take back America from the fascists, from the 813. They are the fucking problem. 813, it's not even the 1%. Millionaires don't even have influence anymore. They're the ones that are lobbying on behalf of the 813. The 813 are literally the reason why we have fascism right now. They are the reason why. Not every billionaire is like, I hate brown people, but every billionaire is doing nothing to stop this administration. So, that's our enemy. Our enemy is 813 billionaires. 813. And if that number ticks up, then they are added to the list of enemies. Enemies, traitors, actual clear and present domestic threats to our nation. 813 are the reason. 813 are the reason.
Has not heard from him since March, before he boarded the flight. He told his mother he was being flown.
And we are trying to make that popular. So whichever phrase ends up sticking, just spread it. Hashtag 813 are the reason. Hashtag we are not three with the 813, etc., etc.
Home to Venezuela. She only found out he was in fact in the Salvador prison when he never arrived home. And a week later saw images on the news from Saycott, including of her son. We're going to go right now to a clip.
He was a soy gay and saying that he was innocent. And he was, being slapped every time he would speak up, but he just, like he couldn't help himself. Then he started praying and calling out, literally crying for his mother. His crying out for his mother really, touched me.
That was Philip Helsinger, who is a photographer who took a photo of Andres with his hair being cut as he cried out for his mother.
And that just was revealed, 6 days ago or something? Wonderful. So my point in all this is we're now finally getting more information about CCOT. We're expanding our own concentration camps in America. And the budget for this exact shit to happen has increased to literally eclipse the entire budget of the United States Air Force, which, by the way, has hundreds of aircraft and munitions. Like, how many aircraft does the Air Force have? So, according to Wikipedia, there are 108 F-15 Charlies, 218 F-15 Echoes, and then 8 EX Eagle 2s. I don't know what the differences are there. We have 704 F-16s, 185 F-22s, 443 F-35s. We have... I thought the A-10s were Marines. I guess not. We have 219 A-10s, and we have 30 AC-130s. We have 46 B-1 Lancer bombers, 20 B-2 Spirits, which are the nuclear bombers, and we have 76 B-52 Stratofortresses, which is also a very dated aircraft systems. We have AWACS, 15 E-3 Sentries, 4 E-4 Night Watches, 2 E-9 Widgets, and 5 E-11s. Okay? With our electronic warfare, that doesn't really mean much to me either, but they do radar jamming and PSYOPs. We got about 12 of those. Reconnaissance craft, we have 5 CN-235s, 40 MC-12Ws, 3 OA-1Ks, Skywardens, 4 Pale Ales, 22 RC-135s, 27 U-2s, and 26 U-28s. And then tankers, 89 KC-46s, 376 KC-135s, 39 HC-130s, 62 MC-130s. And then transport, we have an astronomical fuck ton, a shitload of helicopters, trainers, and then UAVs, drones. We have over 230 MQ-9 Reapers, 3,000 RQ-11 Ravens, 60 RQ-20 Pumas, and 20 RQ-170 Sentinels. Why did I bother reading all of those missile systems and weapon systems? Because the United States Air Force has a budget of $215 billion, which accounts for the maintenance, labor, and fuel and upkeep of each of these weapon systems I just mentioned. And ICE has a budget that exceeds that. The entirety of the Air Force, all medical personnel, all of our weapons system, all of our security forces, all of our maintenance professionals, the 315,000 people that we have in the Air Force, they are receiving a budget that eclipses a 315,000 personnel, $215 billion budget, over 12,000 air system branch of our military to engage in domestic terrorism on U.S. soil. So Abrego Garcia and Andre Hernandez are the absolute tip of the spear of what we are about to see. The drone program had a civilian death rate of 92% before Trump killed the accounting program that gave us the numbers. Right. Exactly. And it was over 3,000 of these drones doing the slaughter. So yeah, fun fucking times there. What else do we got here? Is this Canada?
This is Pod
Canada.
5, the first fully
Yeah,
immersive sleep
that makes
system.
sense.
Intelligent.
The
That
U.S.
happened this past
president
week, yep.
has Canada firmly in his sights again in his latest.
I mean, apolitical, honestly, and I'm being very real with you right now. As someone who feels fairly confident in their ability to lead a country and to put people in places of position and authority to manage the various cabinet positions that govern healthcare, education, infrastructure, foreign relations, domestic relations, and all that. This bill is... I can only fathom the immediate damage of this bill, which is partially what we obviously watched the video about, but with a few additional trickles of how, because it affected the federal government, it'll impact the state, and what impacts the state will impact the county, and what will impact the county will impact the local. And I can see the devastation happening there. But we're talking about the only way to fix this at this point is an actual revolution. Now, whether that's a revolution through arms or a revolution through general strike doesn't really matter. Even if it's an electoral revolution, that would be fantastic. Much preferred, much more peaceful, less bloody. But then again, I like the idea of the guillotine. Point being, there's no fixing this with incrementalism anymore. Like, because the Democrats are going to start running. It's like, okay, we're going to start walking back this bill. We're going to start bringing Roe v. Wade back. We're going to start giving trans rights back through these different whatever-evers. And the reality is, unless you're willing to do a full sweep, arrest, try, prosecute, and then execute every single one of these motherfuckers responsible for this shit, there's no coming back from this. I mean, this bill is... Remember how people almost always say this about Hitler and Nazi Germany? They might have been evil, but at least they had good roads. This bill ensures that we don't even have good roads. All this bill does is make sure that evil and cruelty is what permeates in this country. That's it. That's the only thing that is being supported in this country. Cruelty and evil. That's it. That's what this bill does. All it does is layer on the cruelty and the malevolence. And states are going to be powerless to do anything about it for all the states' rights nonsense that they always talk about. We need a revolution, no more half measures. 1,000%, buddy. 1,000%.
Social media post, it appears to have grave ramifications for trade between Canada and the United States. Let's dig deeper into all of this. We've got CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian on the story, joining us now live from Ottawa. Rafi, we just broke the news a few moments ago. The president has posted on Truth Social that he is terminating.
Well, not only is it confirmed that Israel has that shit, but it's also confirmed that each of those mobile makers that you just described spy on you anyway. Like, I'm being listened to right now on my phone. Like, this little game that's been running in the background is probably also spying and collecting data on me right now. Everything right in this room, every piece of our electronics is collecting data on you every time it has any amount of power in it.
All discussions on trade with Canada effective immediately. What are we hearing from the president?
Well, I've never heard of that before, so...
Yeah, this is a pretty dramatic thing to post, just a few days before Canada.
That might not even be available in the United States.
Today, and also just a few days before Independence Day in the U.S., but he's put this tweet up effectively. It's on your screens, and I'll read it to you. He's saying, "We have just been informed that..."
And this is crazy, because we did cover foreign affairs yesterday, and this was buried even though it was literally only 6 fucking days ago, guys. This was literally within the week, and it has already been brushed aside from the news so aggressively because of all the other shit that's been happening.
Canada, a very difficult country to trade with, including the fact that they have charged our farmers as much as 400% tariffs for years on dairy products, has just announced that they are putting a digital services tax on our American technology companies, which is a direct and blatant attack on our country. They are obviously copying the European Union, which has done the same thing and is currently under discussion with us also. Based on this egregious tax, we are hereby terminating all discussions on trade with Canada effective immediately. We will let Canada know the tariff that they will be paying to do business with the United States of America within the next 7-day period.
Which is tomorrow.
Thank you for your attention to this matter, which is what he's been signing off his social media posts lately. So, yeah, this is quite dramatic. We are in touch with the Canadian government, trying to figure out what this means on their end. If they're talking to the US, certainly phone calls would be being made right now. We are aware that Dominic LeBlanc, the Intergovernmental Trade Minister, has not been talking to his US counterpart this week, to Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. We understand, according to LeBlanc's office, that this is due to a scheduling conflict. That's what we were told. That there is nothing more to read into the fact that those conversations have not been happening this week at the political level. But seeing this sudden late afternoon tweet from, or social media post from Trump, well, that suggests there are more questions to be answered here, and we're asking those questions and trying to find out more.
Repentant Man, thank you for the follow. I say we ship off all the potheads to fight Iran. Before you ban him, because although that was a trolling comment, before you ban him, why specifically potheads and not, for instance, domestic abusers or people who voted for it, for that matter? Why specifically potheads? Now, you just need to have unlocked Pixel phone and you can just so you're just talking, okay, so it's not just a hardware, it's also a software. I see. The military should shape up those potheads lickety-split. You mean like the military has now reduced its entry requirements to no longer have any ASFAB requirements whatsoever, and is now requiring a loyalty test to this administration? Because that's the military you're talking about will shape up these potheads. Potheads who historically don't have any loyalty to government, let alone this administration, which also is not pro marijuana use in the first place. So you're contradicting what this administration is trying to do with the military, which is create a loyal military that'll follow orders and pick people that are unable to even commit to discipline. I mean, first of all, who the fuck are you to tell anyone what chemicals they can metabolize? Right. Also, potheads aren't stumbling into traffic or passing out in parks. That would be drunks and alcoholics, meth users, and that's predominantly white people. So, again, I'm really not understanding any part of your argument here. Obviously, I could tell that you're trying to be trolling, but not getting immediately banned. But like, this is the dumbest shit I have ever heard that isn't belligerently racist or discriminatory. It's just stupid. The war on drugs was admittedly about outlawing the lifestyles of the state's political enemies. It was actually to prevent white women from having sex with black men in the 1940s. And it escalated because black people were starting to build generational wealth, and Reagan was not having that and started working with the cartels like Pablo Escobar to drown poor black communities and middle-class black communities with crack cocaine, and then criminalized it, which is why powder cocaine to this very day has a lesser mandatory minimum sentencing than crack cocaine, because white people use cocaine, black people use crack. So no, the war on drugs was always racist. Boot camp bullshit. Yeah. Yeah. I honestly don't mind like a little bit of trolling. Like, just being contrarian or whatever. But, like, what even the fuck was that all about? I mean, potheads are going to make great soldiers. In what fucking capacity? Like, granted, I think soldiers should be allowed to smoke pot. Because it's pretty fucking stressful in the military. But you're using potheads as a euphemism. What? The more you learn, the more things suck. Time to change. No, yeah, well, drunk people just pass out in the snow and freeze to death. Well, it depends on where you are. If you're in the northern climates, it would be in the snow. If you're in the southern climates, it's in the swamps, and then you get eaten by an alligator. Like, here's the thing. If he was being cheeky or witty, like, if he was being funny with it, it's like, oh, we should send all the potheads to Iran because they got the good shit down there. They invented hookah. Like, that would have been funny. I would have been like, yeah, man, let's send the potheads there. Or literally, I don't know, anything else that was not licking the window. Okay. China in Mexico. See, you're even quicker to ban people than I am, because I usually don't even notice they spoke first. All right.
China has just made a bold move to pull Mexico away from the United States through Brazil's invitation to the 2025 BRICS summit. This comes as President Trump has imposed tariffs on Mexico and other trading partners, creating an opening for America's strategic competitors. Brazilian President Lula da Silva announced on June 23rd that Mexico, Colombia, and Uruguay are invited to participate in the BRICS summit, scheduled for July in Rio de Janeiro.
This stream
Lula declared that BRICS now represents almost half of humanity and a similar portion of global GDP. But Mexico's response reveals something Washington needs to pay attention to. The invitation isn't just about trade. It's part of China's broader strategy to expand BRICS' influence across Latin America and challenge American economic dominance in the region. BRICS has been aggressively expanding since 2024, adding Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates as full members. The bloc also invited 13 countries as partner nations to create a network of emerging economies operating outside Western-led institutions.
Okay, so this is, I think, the same exact fucking video from a different perspective that we watched earlier about how China is working in Latin America. So is there a part where we actually get to how it's really actually with Mexico? Because I'm not seeing it here. Now, that being said, we can discuss this. We should discuss this. If China and Mexico become strong trade partners, and Mexico borders the United States and was one of our former top trade partners, and Canada was one of our former top trade partners, and we have now alienated both of them, if China picks both of them up, they both have coasts to trade with China without any sort of U.S. interference. Now, the U.S. could maybe blockade a little bit because of Alaska and Washington, right? But Canada is still all this. So if U.S. naval vessels start blockading from Alaska down to Washington, Canada will rightfully be upset about it. But, I mean, are they going to fight a war over it? Probably not. But Mexico, there is fuck all that we can do to prevent Mexico from trading with China. Their coast is about the same size as California, if not bigger, and they do have ports all along it and right there across from China. So, like, it's not only just a geographic convenience to trade with these two countries to trade. It's also something that the United States can do absolutely nothing about. And with the way this bill is going, and with the way our international stance is going, and the way our international trade relations are going, and diplomacy and this, that, and the other, we are going to become an isolationist nation whether we want to be or not. And our hubris is going to be the reason why. And it's not our hubris, right? Like all of us watching on the stream. It's the hubris of this administration. Not realizing that you can't act the way you do in a boardroom behind the podium or with the seal of the president of the United States behind you. You can't bully other countries because that's not how that works. Yeah, it seems like it worked a little bit in some ways and it didn't in another few ways, but that's because other countries are still trying to be adults in the room and like, well, we're not going to not trade with America, are we? I mean, I guess we could eventually, but like right now we kind of have to, don't we? Like there's some stuff they have we need and some stuff we have that they need. So what's happening right now? But give it another year or two and the United States is not going to have trade partners other than Israel. And unless I guess the war with Russia and Ukraine escalates and then Europe's going to be like, America, please come and help us. Except I don't think America is going to be doing any helping or saving this go around. We're going to be fighting tooth and nail to stay afloat. Because again, what's not being discussed is, yeah, we have all this shit in the United States Air Force, but we're running out of munitions. We're not manufacturing more of it, and our weapon systems are outdated. So I don't think World War III is going to go the way that Europe and America thinks it's going to go. Weed sucks. I'm oversensitive to THC. Green out from the slightest contact. Yeah, well, you know. Trump is bringing the trade war to North America just like he's bringing the drone war. Yup. The cartels are already designated terrorist orgs, which that might be like one of the only things he has done, which is what I would have done myself. Cartels are terrorist organizations. Like, I'm not just saying we should make cartels and organized crimes terrorists because they are. They are. Like, they engage in human rights violations. They terrorize politicians. They terrorize law enforcement agencies or militaries, depending on their scale, so that they can influence policy to make their lives, their criminal activities, easier, or for people to look the other way. So that is the very definition of terrorism, is acts of violence or aggression for political purposes or gain. That is by definition terrorism. If I would try to make the American empire fall, I do not think I could do it faster than Trump is doing now. No, I don't think you could either. I don't think anybody could. I mean, honestly, if Trump wasn't trying to destroy the US government, I don't know what somebody who would be doing differently. But now they're just saying that everyone is part of a cartel. Here in the US, they are weaponizing it against all Latinos. Oh, of course. I mean, absolutely. I mean, everybody with tattoos now and brown is part of a gang and therefore a terrorist. Like, I'm not saying that the way it's being implemented is a good thing. I said that designating cartels as terrorists would have been the only thing that this administration has done is justified, but then it immediately turned around and weaponized it. So 100% agreeing with you right there. I'm worried about more unconstitutional war based on the war on terror. No, exactly. Now we're going to start invading what other countries now? Because they have cartels, terrorists? I mean, we haven't needed excuses before to coup d'etat other Latin American countries, but now we don't need the excuse anymore. Now we can just say, oh, there's terrorists in there. Either you let us invade your country for oil, to stop the terrorists, or we are coming in there anyway, and you're not going to like it. And again, we are stretching ourselves thin on multiple fronts, too many prolonged military activities, and giving unfettered munitions to Israel to commit genocide against Palestinians. Oh, yeah, no. Well, Hegseth's going to prison for many different reasons. But sure, just for funsies, we can do it for his tattoos as well. Yeah, so, honestly, as the days go by and the money starts just getting distributed into ICE, I give it 3 months, 4 months, 5 months maybe. At best, we have a year. I think we have a year at most before this administration declares all Latinos terrorists by association of cartel members due to their ethnic status, and that $350 billion balloons even further. I mean, that is the final solution that this can only take. That's the thing. They're calling it everything other than the final solution. They're calling it anything other than the Third Reich or the Fourth Reich or the Aryan race or any of that shit. They're stopping just shy of saying we want a white purebred race of Americans. We want to get all undesirables to be dead and be beneath the Aryan race, the superior race. They're not talking about the final solution, even though they keep talking about 65 million Latinos being fed to alligators and shit like that. It's just, if we were speaking German, there would be zero differences between what Hitler was doing and what we are doing with the exact same context. Right. They went to a kid's birthday party and claimed that the people there were all cartel. ICE took them away and sent them to El Salvador. They went to a fucking kid's birthday party and arrested a bunch of tetes and mommies and left the kids to do whatever and sent them to El Salvador and other places. Maybe some of them have gotten returned or released or whatever, but the fact of the matter is, there's brown people gathering, they're terrorists, better fucking disrupt that shit. It's insane. Well, true, because they don't need a warrant. And because they don't have to follow due process. Because habeas corpus and due process are a suggestion, according to ICE. And because law enforcement continues to aid and abet, and because governors continue to aid and abet, and cities continue to aid and abet, and citizens aren't doing enough to make it very uncomfortable for them, it's now de facto normalized. And it's becoming more and more normalized because it's becoming less and less talked about in the news. Which is, again, the fucking problem, and why I say we have a Nazi problem in our country, and that this Nazi administration with their Nazi Gestapo are committing Nazi acts of terror against brown people. And this is not okay. And as president, it is exactly the kind of thing that I would prosecute with extreme prejudice and push for the death penalty and would gleefully pull the lever to the guillotine myself. Why do you think Trump's ideal version of America is? Oh, what? And do you think he can get close to that world? I partly blame the woman who called 911 that time and it became a meme. That's part of it, yeah. But do I think he can achieve his ideal version of America? I mean, yes, because it's literally happening right now. Like, it is in the process of literally coming to fruition. Now, how long it remains in place is the question, but he is going to see, I mean, unless the final version of his ideal world is like 0 brown people, no, right? Because the human race is just that's not gonna happen. The United States not having brown people, also not gonna happen anytime soon. But where brown people become actual legal second-class citizens, yes. We are not that far. We're there. If you want to, depending on how you want to determine what is a second-class citizen, a full citizen has the right to travel and to express themselves and to dissent and to do all the other things, right? No trouble accessing the workforce, education, healthcare, any of that shit, right? That's what a full citizen has in a given state. A second-class citizen only has access to some of those rights and privileges, and then it just goes down from there. Apparently now, if you're Latino, that's probable cause. Apparently now, if you're Latino and you have tattoos, that's probable cause. Apparently now, if you're a Latino working here legally, that's probable cause. So, if the whole point is to achieve second-class status for non-whites, we have achieved that. We have effectively achieved that for Latinos. Is an NWO? Well, with the 813 in power, that's what we have been seeing. That, I mean, to be fair, globalization is the New World Order, because we were not a globalization Earth. We were not globalized 70 years ago, 50 years ago. We've only recently become globalized, and look what that has wrought. It's wrought open air slavery, genocide, extreme wealth inequality, and now we're heading into real issues, like natural issues. Our nature is being devastated, our ecosystems are being devastated, our food chains are being devastated, our water supplies are being devastated. Like, the New World Order is a death cult, and we get to be in it. Yeah, you're not even a dark Latina, and you still fit the profile because, whenever you speak, it's very obvious you're not from around these parts, are you? So yeah, bleak. What else do we got? Oh, here we go. Some positive action.
Boom like we've never seen in Central Ohio.
Construction is busy.
And now to the latest on the federal immigration operations here in Southern California. The ACLU and family members whose loved ones were detained are speaking out about what they call unlawful activity by the Trump administration. KTLA 5's Kimberly Chang live in Torrance with those developing details. Hi, Kimberly.
Lou, hi. This news conference just wrapping up now. Behind me, as you mentioned, there were family members of people detained, also attorneys and advocates from several organizations that were here to announce a class action lawsuit that was filed today. You can see them wrapping up here behind me. Now, they say that they have filed this complaint against DHS and ICE, among other governmental agencies. That news conference took place at a car wash where a federal raid took place last week. The owner of Bubble Bath Car Wash in Torrance told KTLA about 20 masked federal agents swarmed his business. Video showed agents pushing the owner inside the car wash tunnel as he was questioned. 2 employees were detained, sparking concern from family members who said they didn't know where their loved ones were taken. Now, some of them spoke out today. This coalition said during the news conference that they are now taking on the Trump administration's immigration raids that have taken place in many locations, including on street corners, parking lots, car washes, agricultural and day labor sites. They allege that those taken into custody have been held in ICE custody in, quote, dungeon-like facilities and deplorable conditions. The lawsuit was filed this morning. The plaintiffs include 5 individual workers as well as 3 organizations and a legal services provider. This includes the LA Worker Center Network, United Farm Workers, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, or CHIRLA, and Immigrant Defenders Law Center. They allege constitutional violations. They're requesting that the court certify this case as a class action and issue preliminary and permanent injunctions to stop further violations. As I mentioned, a family member of a car wash worker spoke out earlier today. Take a listen.
Taken by ICE on June 17th, and he just on his day off, and he was just going to work to support his family. We just want him to come home. He's never done anything wrong, and he's always a worker, hardworking person. If he had his last dollar, he would give it up, up to you, and it's just heartbreaking for us.
It is critical that we claim our rightful rights under the Constitution. This lawsuit speaks to protecting our basic freedoms in the middle of an onslaught by our own government. This attack on our community is comprehensive and cruel, involving the illegal snatching and grabbing of community members off the streets like this car wash, and then subjecting them to unconstitutional and dehumanizing confinement conditions.
Yeah, because here's the thing too, right? She kept saying unconstitutional conditions. Cruel and unusual punishment is not allowed. That's the 8th Amendment, if I'm not mistaken. And that's exactly what these concentration camps are, is cruel and unusual punishment. Never mind the fact that you're violating due process and habeas corpus. Never mind any of that. It's also the deplorable conditions, which, of course, they won't even allow Congress members to go in and look at. So these concentration camps are concentration camps. We can clearly, definitively say that because of the squalid conditions that are constantly being reported, and they are not going to allow reporters or anybody to go in there and see and verify it, which probably means they're worse than what's being reported. On top of the fact that we are terrorizing an entire ethnic block of society. Now, you brought up an exact correct point. Apolitical. I think the immigrants are one of the pillars holding America. America was built by immigrants. America is a land of immigrants, granted also colonizers, but we are an immigrant nation. And the fact that we are treating immigrants now as if they are less than us is insane, because we were always equals to begin with. Granted, white supremacy and racism notwithstanding. My point in all of this is saying that this is pure white supremacy. This is all it is. And it has never deviated in this country. It's just now it's rearing its ugliest head to date. Like, honestly, I don't believe much different than the way the slaves were treated in America. So we've really, not only have we regressed to pre-suffrage America, we're regressing to pre-Civil War America. Like, how much further do we have to regress? Are we going to start wearing white powder wigs again? Like, I mean, honestly, are we going to start drinking tea and saying God save the Queen? Like, how much further are we going to regress as a society before enough is enough? We have a Trump dupe in the Netherlands. He also wants to stop all migration. He is the leader of the biggest party here. His name is Geert Wilders. Yeah, no, that's the fucking problem. That is absolutely the fucking problem, is that, and I mentioned that, is that Europe is once again succumbing to fascism, and it only took 80 years. 80 years ago, Europe was taken by storm from fascism. And 80 years later, when all of everybody who was alive during then is now dead, we get it again. And what causes fascism? Capitalism. That's what it is. Free trade is never free trade. Open markets is never open markets. It's about control and manipulation. Because if the control and manipulation is capital rather than the means of production, then capital is the only legislation that exists. And capital can always control what capital is used by. And if governments use capital and rely upon capital, which they thought they controlled because they're the issuing authority, well, they're wrong. They may issue capital, but they don't wield capital. And when you are the one wielding capital, you can also then determine the issuance of capital and who has access to it, which is what? Fascism. And that is why capitalism can only ever achieve fascism as its bottom line. Its evolutionary pathway will only ever result in fascism, which is why it is an existential threat and a clear and present danger to society.
Now, the Department of Homeland Security did issue a statement in response, saying in part that any claims that individuals have been targeted by law enforcement because of their skin color are disgusting and categorically false. They also...
Didn't they literally just admit that they are racially profiling Latino people? Like, did that not literally just get admitted? Am I hallucinating? Because I seem to recall either a reel or an article saying that they are racially profiling. Like, I distinctly remember seeing or reading that. Well, seeing it. Either seeing or hearing it. I distinctly remember it. Government could work for us all, but in order to do that, we need to get rid of the mutation blend of 21st century reality TV with 19th and 20th century narrow-minded racist stereotypical thinking. Right, no. That's the thing. Government is supposed to exist on behalf of the people. It's supposed to serve the needs of the many. That's why government exists. That's why we organized governments and is one of the contributing factors to human evolution and civilization. Government is the idea of putting our collective needs into the hands of a few to help direct the flow of those needs being developed. Because humans realize, like, we want to work together, but we argue too fucking much. So let's just give the direction to somebody, and they can help direct everything else. Hence tribal leaders, right? Hence village elders. But apparently, humans suck at governing after about village level. And honestly, there were abuses between village elders and fucking tribal leaders too. So, like, humans really suck at leading one another, is what we're really discovering, until or unless generationally, multiple generations can actually espouse and embody communal leadership. And I'm not saying communism or socialism. I'm saying community-based, focusing on the needs of the many over the needs of the few, right? Of making sure everybody's needs are met unconditionally and that any progress made never leaves anyone behind. That's what we need to do as a society, but see if we ever fucking get there. All right. I'm going to play this.
The Senate just passed Trump's big, beautiful
and
bill,
I need to
with
drink
Vice
some water.
President J.D. Vance courageously casting the tie-breaking vote. So while millions of Americans wait to see whether or not they'll have health care in the near future, the Trump administration is grappling with its own bit of drama, and honestly, it's hard to feel bad for them. A group of hackers known by the singular pseudonym Robert told Reuters that they have 100 gigabytes of emails from accounts of people closely linked to Donald Trump. The emails are said to have been obtained in 2024 during the election. The accounts that were hacked belong to such Trump insiders as his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, Trump's lawyer, Lindsay Halligan, Roger Stone, who needs no introduction, and even Stormy Daniels. Now the hackers are considering selling those emails. So here's what FBI Director Kash Patel told the Daily Beast regarding the breach. The FBI takes all threats against the president, his staff, and our cybersecurity with the utmost seriousness, safeguarding our administration officials' ability to securely communicate to accomplish the...
You mean like using Signal to discuss active war plans and then accidentally adding journalists to that Signal chat because it isn't traced by any sort of federal oversight, and conducting official business because it cannot be archived or traced or stored or anything like that? That kind of cybersecurity with the utmost seriousness? Are you fucking serious right now? Like, Pete Hegseth leaked Signal chats not once but fucking twice, and this fucking moron has the audacity to say this shit.
The president's mission is a top priority. Anyone associated with any kind of breach of national security will be fully investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Reuters, for its part, authenticated some of the emails that Robert had obtained. Some of the emails discussed a financial arrangement between Trump and RFK Jr., who, as we all know, dropped
Hold
out.
up. Did we not call that during the election? Because I'm fairly certain we were streaming during that time. I am confident we called that shit, that there was some sort of fucking palms being greased. And now there's fucking evidence of corruption. Bro, why is this administration not in jail? U.S. Marshals, do your fucking jobs.
The presidential race last year, endorsed Trump, and now serves in the Trump administration in a position that he really should not be in. There are also settlement negotiations between Trump and Stormy Daniels in the emails. The hackers are said to have links to Iran, but they haven't addressed those claims yet. In August of last year, the Trump campaign accused Iran of hacking its emails. So as far as we know, Politico, the New York Times, and the Washington Post received documents regarding the hack, but for some reason, none of them published anything related to them. Ken Klippenstein, however, also received some documents and published the so-called J.D. Vance dossier, a 271-page research paper where the Trump campaign discussed having J.D. Vance as Trump's running mate. The following month, Klippenstein published another article accusing the Trump campaign of working with Musk to censor his reporting on X. But regarding the current threat from Robert to sell the contents of this batch of hacked emails, Marcy McCarthy, Director of Public Affairs at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, said a hostile foreign adversary was threatening to illegally exploit purportedly stolen and unverified material in an effort to distract, discredit, and divide. This so-called cyber attack is nothing more than digital propaganda, and
which
the targets
apparently
are no
has
This
receipts.
is a calculated smear campaign meant to damage President Trump and discredit honorable public servants who serve our country with distinction.
Let's be very clear. Let's be very clear, folks. This administration is 100% serving their country with distinction. It is very distinct what they are doing. It is very publical. It is very public. It is very accessible and archivable what they are doing. And it's not just the United States of America and citizens who are recording these videos and making clips and YouTube and this, that, and the other, because YouTube could purge all that shit. Facebook could purge all that shit tomorrow. But it's on our phones. Oh, but Android and Apple could purge it. You're right. They could. Every single piece of tech in the United States of America could purge all incriminating data surrounding and concerning this administration. They absolutely could. But you know what they couldn't do? They couldn't do that to Germany or Iran or China or Russia or Afghanistan or France or Brazil or Burkina Faso. If I become president, if we collectively become president, right? And I reach out to Burkina Faso, our Captain Traoré, and I say, hey, Captain, would you do me a solid? Because this administration, knowing I was about to take over the Oval and that I was going to prosecute them with extreme prejudice, has literally fire-sailed every ounce of evidence, digital and otherwise, tying themselves to their crimes. But since this was all public and scrutinized and news and all this, that, and the other, do you have any copies? I do. Excellent. Captain, would you mind sharing that with me? I would not. I guarantee you the captain would send me a flash drive or print that shit out and deliver it his damn self with zero hesitation. And I guarantee any other world leader or country would do the same thing if it meant watching these motherfuckers burn. Because nobody wants this. It disrupts trade, it disrupts the economy, it disrupts the balance of powers in the world. Nobody wants chaos. Nobody who actually wants to govern and lead. So if I come around and then say, hey, I want to put out this fire with extreme prejudice, people are going to be like, all right, here you go. Sweet. So anyway,
Criminals will be found and they will be brought to justice. Let this be a warning to others. There will be no refuge, tolerance, or leniency for these actions. But please bear with me while I celebrate just a little bit of distress that these terrible, terrible people in Washington are currently under. They have the audacity to tell millions of Americans that they can't have health care because there is no money in the budget for it, while spending nearly $50 million on a military parade that was poorly attended and poorly regarded, while spending over $100 million mobilizing the American military against American citizens, while spending $4 billion to bomb Iran on behalf of Israel, while proposing $75 billion more for ICE. It's more than just a little bit disingenuous.
Jesus fucking Christ. Because here's the worst part of what she just said. This video aired a day ago, and I guess this bombshell was within this week too. So hey, recap Thursday, right? They were, as of a week ago, arguing for only $75 billion. They got over 4 times that amount, almost 5 times that amount. I had to do some quick math there. So do you see how quickly this shit's escalating? It went from a $75 billion budget increase to receiving a $350 billion increase.
Keep telling people that there is no money, but you somehow have all of this money laying around for parades and federally funded domestic terrorism. It's also rough when we know that they are literally taking Medicaid from people who need it the most and giving it to the wealthiest among us who do not need it at all. They don't even try denying it anymore because they simply cannot. Their best hope is that their voters just aren't paying close enough attention to realize what is going on or who is to blame. So here's some more.
Well, it's not even paying attention. They don't have the capacity to understand.
On Iran by saying that he totally obliterated Iran's abilities to fortify uranium and build a nuclear bomb, a leak came out saying that totally obliterated might have been a bit of an overstatement. Over the weekend, a second leak came out undermining Trump's initial claim, thereby undermining Trump's desperate attempts to appear a strong...
So, I mean, this is good news. I mean, there are people in the administration who are trying to undermine it. But the problem is, none of those fuckers are in positions of power. All they can do is leak information, leak little quips and comments and this, that, and the other. Like, all of these directors who resigned, all of these agency heads that resigned, you're fucking cowards. Like, you are actual fucking cowards. Grow a pair. You should... When the layoffs happened, you should have refused to leave your fucking office. Make them remove you. Make them get the FBI. Make them get the U.S. Marshals. This was the most resistible government overthrow in all of history. Just like this is the most avoidable World War III in all of human history. This is the most avoidable economic crisis in human history. All people had to do is say, no, come and get me, motherfucker. That's it. That's all they had to do. That is, and you know why I am saying that's all they had to do? Because when Elon Musk took his band of merry misfits to hack or dismantle or do whatever to all the other agencies, right? Every time an agency told them to go fuck themselves and spin, they left. They never got the U.S. Marshals involved. They never got the FBI involved. They didn't get, you know, the big scary motherfucker that's 6'7" and uses steroids like most of us use aspirin. They didn't get any of those guys involved either. They were told to fuck off, and they did. That's how fucking weak these pieces of shit are. I feel like I'm looking in the camera on the episode of The Office. Like, this is the most unnecessary existing administration. All you have to do is tell these dipshit motherfuckers, en masse, of course, no. No is a complete sentence. And I get that he's a rapist. I get that. I get that he doesn't believe in consent. I understand that as well. So force it down his fucking neck. Christ. All right. It's the holiday weekend. We'll finish up this video.
Masculine leader man. The Washington Post reported that an intercepted call of Iranian officials revealed that the damage Trump's attack did was less than what the Iranians were actually expecting. They thought it'd be worse. According to the Post, the communication intended to be private included Iranian government officials speculating as to why the strikes directed by President Donald Trump were not as destructive and extensive as they had anticipated. Like some others, they spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive intelligence. The intercepted signals intelligence is the latest preliminary information offering a more complicated picture than the one conveyed by the president, who has said the operation completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Of course, the White House is adamant that Trump's attacks were so big and so devastating, and that Iran's nuclear capabilities are, yes, totally obliterated.
You know, I actually was finally able to record a video because my present circumstances do not usually allow for that. But I did make a video about 4th of July on YouTube, on the primary YouTube channel. It's not the streaming channel. It's the one that I use for political discourse, I guess. I don't know how a better way to phrase that would be. It is here. It is not here. I guess I did not share it. Copy. Paste. Oh, there it is. All right. Click on that shit.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt insists that their nuclear weapons program is over. But is it? It was during the Obama administration that Iran had signed the nuclear deal, which did eliminate Iran's ability to produce a nuke. But Trump pulled out of the deal as soon as he became president, essentially giving Iran back the nuclear capabilities that it had previously signed away, the same nuclear capabilities that Trump now wants credit for totally obliterating. Also, by the way, the cost of him giving Iran back its nuclear capabilities only to allegedly bomb them away years later cost taxpayers $4 billion of money that we keep being told we don't have. And now analysts are less certain that Iran's weapons program is over, as Leavitt claims. Analysts broadly agree that the strikes involved immense U.S. firepower, including 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs and Tomahawk cruise missiles that severely damaged the nuclear facilities in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. But the extent of the destruction and how long it may take Iran to rebuild have been hotly debated amid reports that Iran moved its stockpiles of highly enriched uranium before the strike, and that the explosion sealed off the entrance to 2 of the facilities but did not collapse their underground buildings. But while we all know that Trump loves to exaggerate, his supporters haven't caught on as yet. They still think he had over 1 million people at his first inauguration. For his second inauguration, there was no head count of the people attending on the National Mall, and
yeah, that's because he learned his lesson the first time and made sure it was in the atrium, I think, so that only exclusive people could come in, and therefore whether or not there was a huge crowd outside was irrelevant. It was the who's who that was inside. This is how fucking pathetic this piece of shit is. He's petty, he's narcissistic, and he's blisteringly stupid. Well, I don't know, dismantling the federal government requires a whole lot of intelligence. It does. It does. But it also requires a whole lot of people willing to be traitors to your country. And you don't get that overnight. In fact, if he was so smart and capable, he would have done that in 2017. What really is going on is that the Heritage Foundation, which is a hodgepodge of conservative think tanks, AIPAC, and everything else under the sun, won. They are the ones who were grooming politicians for decades, for years, for this very moment. And Trump is actually the patsy that they are finally utilizing to get this shit done by dangling more wealth in front of them and the illusion of power. When man in White House say click on that shit, I click on that shit. The military parade was so ass. And you know what the worst part is? It's the army had actually been preparing for it for 3 years, and it was supposed to be so much more interesting than what it actually was. So it was malicious compliance on the army's behalf, but still a waste of tax dollars. The irony is that the government people are dismantling government. Okay, I don't know. The average Veterans Day parade near me is better. No, it absolutely is. I was gonna say, I was in the honor guard for a couple of those, I think. Granted, we were only posting the colors, but yeah. I agree with you on that. My daughter is only 9 years old, and she was laughing so hard. The squeaky tank was my favorite thing. Like that was so embarrassing. Just this tiny little tank from God knows how long ago. Squeak. 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 And of course, there was like 3 people in the stands for the whole thing. So it was just this. Squeak. 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 Nothing. Just absolutely nothing. Oh, I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Anyway, we're trying to get through this video, and I keep getting...
Certainly were no photos of what I can only assume would have been very small crowds, because conveniently, the whole thing had to be moved indoors due to freezing weather. But even when it comes to matters of national security, Trump can't help but default to his own ego and sense of bravado. For him, bigger is always better because he is a child. For him, he can lie without flinching because he has no conscience nor any sense of responsibility.
Okay, it depends on... Okay, here's the thing. Lying without flinching doesn't make you a child, okay? Lying without flinching to elevate yourself, that's what makes you a child. Because I lie to my employers. I'll just stop there.
Anyone but himself, which is not a good thing when you're the president of an entire nation. And all of that is well and good for him. But for the people who support him, the people who still believe him and everything he says, when will it be enough? When will you be convinced? And how much longer will the rest of us have to suffer your delusions? Trump is tricky. We have to report on him because he is the president. We have to talk about him. The things he says and does are politically, socially, and economically relevant. But as I've said before, I watched this man come to political prominence on Twitter just by tweeting nonsense all day. I watched him get millions of dollars worth of free press just by being exclamatory and inflammatory. I watched his divisive and previously unacceptable, unpalatable rhetoric first become normalized and then justified. It is no surprise that we are here where we are today. The question now is, how do we move forward after having been so deeply wounded and split? Or rather, how do we move forward with ourselves after we allowed ourselves to be used and abused by a narcissist? And I'm not saying that the narcissist is not to blame here, but I'm saying that collectively we all have some serious inner work to do. All right, that's it for me. If you got...
So is Yasmin Khan new? Because I thought Rebel HQ was something else outright, for one. And then I realized the TYT watermark was in the top right-hand corner there. And I'm like, since when is this lady part of TYT? And what the fuck is Rebel HQ to TYT? So, is she, like, new? Is she... I mean, she's a little saucy here, you know? She's got a little bit of fire to her, you know? A little bit of snap to her. But, like... Is she good? I mean, I know you added her. I'm not complaining. I'm curious. How did she end up on TYT? Because TYT, despite it becoming a neoliberal, almost conservative think tank now, is still pretty prolific. I mean, Rebel HQ has 1.3 million subscribers. So to be a part of that, I mean, you had to have done something. Okay, well, I guess we'll find out as time goes on if we end up seeing her again in our streams. So, that brings us to 10:07. She was okay to you? Yeah, I mean, like I said, she had a little bit of sass. And I think she was putting way too much, like, personal... Like, when you make a video to discuss a topic, your little quips at the end, I don't feel are necessary. Like, not for 2 minutes, right? I'll usually do a quip in my videos if I'm discussing a subject. I'll discuss the subject, or what I'll introduce the subject, discuss the subject, and then maybe give my closing thoughts on it, right? As a streamer, right, when we're streaming, that's why you are watching me. Other than, like, morbid curiosity. Why is this pasty white motherfucker with a sweater in the Oval? Like, there's a whole lot of shit going on here that I don't understand, right? Like, okay, I get that. But I'm allowed to be opinionated. That's the whole point. You're getting the raw experience. But when you're crafting a message and curating it to be delivered once, but to be consumed multiple times, leave your opinions. I don't know, but maybe I don't have 1.3 million subscribers, so maybe I'm fucking wrong. Maybe I need to be more opinionated in my little 3 to 5 minute videos or 9-minute videos. 2 hours from Independence Day. I thought she is pretty. You get to be sexist. Listen, only because you said it in chat, I have to address this now. I agree. And I was definitely not distracted by that fact. So, with that being said, I already sent the link to my Independence Day message, I guess. I'll send it again. Why not? We might have had a couple different viewers come in and out since then. I don't foresee me having the availability to do a 4th of July stream because I will also be spending time with my family. I don't think America deserves a birthday party, especially not for this piece of fucking garbage administration. But for the sake of maintaining a positive relationship with my family, I'm going to participate. And I'm also fat and poor, so I like food. And yeah, so if we get the chance to do that, like if I'm back by 8 or so, we can do a 4th of July stream, but chances are, I'm not going to be back until Tuesday. I don't even know what day of the week that is. The 8th, maybe? It's the 8th. Okay, so we'll be back Tuesday the 8th at 7 p.m. All of you that have been watching, thank you, first of all. This has been one of the best viewerships I've had since getting back into the... Actually, period. Let's just be honest. So I hope to see you all again. I'm sorry, looking to the camera, but looking at the number. I hope to see you all again on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be primarily focusing on domestic issues, which I'm unfortunately have no fucking doubt in my mind that there will be plenty to discuss. Wednesdays, we discuss foreign policies, foreign politics, just whatever the fuck has happened everywhere else. And then Thursday, we do a recap like this, which sometimes we have to do recaps because news stories were buried so definitively that we couldn't find them on the day that we actually needed to do them. So, with that being said, take care, everybody. Have a great and safe 4th of July weekend. Do not add, subtract to the population. Do not subtract from your digits. Keep fireworks away from your face. Do not operate firearms when under the influence of any substance. And be careful around bonfires. So with that being said, folks, be safe out there.